Hot sun in the sky, hot sunlight on the playground, almost to the plastic runway to smoke. It's too delicious. He pretended to fight. As a result, he was beaten by others and fainted. He was dead. No way, who let him not long eyes, to provoke Brother Su? That's why people are cheap and don't know what they are like now. They dare to think of themselves as Su Qing's fiancé. It's not worth pitying that a toad wants to eat swan meat and is killed. A group of students are surrounded in the middle of the playground, disdainful to lie on the hot ground, unconscious. Tian pointed out. Yao or kill. 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 Suddenly, Tian, who fainted on the ground, suddenly bounced up from the ground. His face was ferocious, his hands swayed, and he gave out a howl of grief and coldness. The sudden outbreak of teenagers makes the students around step back involuntarily. Pooh! Tian, Brother Su has already left. Don't pretend to play your 8 fists here. Still kill, just like you were punched. I'm afraid it's hard to kill a chicken. To be a man, you should have self-knowledge. Su Qing is not something you can covet. Let's get rid of it, or you may be killed next time. Then, I don't know who was the first to laugh. Then, everyone burst into laughter. The sound is heard, but Tian seems not to feel it, and his face is at a loss. What's the matter? I'm Tian, the great monk of Yupu realm, who is known as the Emperor of Dan. After 100 years of accumulated deliberation, I have refined a 9-grade Phoenix Nirvana elixir, which has been lost for thousands of years. I intend to use the power of the 9-grade elixir to upgrade my cultivation to the heavenly palace that no one has broken through for countless years. The wood is beautiful in the forest, and the wind will destroy it. I was scared by the other sects in Fengsuan spirit realm. On the day of Dan's success, 8 great monks of Yupu realm attacked and killed me. My Taoist partner Ningyao fought a bloody battle to help me protect the Dharma. The Dharma phase was broken, and my life was in danger. The blessed land of Qingming turned into a sea of blood, and countless people died. I witnessed this scene. I took my body as fire and exploded the Phoenix Nirvana pill that was about to become a pill. The jade and stone were all burned. How could I still be alive now? No, here this is. The next second, Tian turns to see the strange and familiar faces, and the blankness on his face turns into disbelief. This is the earth. You are from Nanhai University, you are Li Li Fan. In an instant, the deepest memories, such as movie playback, let Tian finally understand where he is and what happened. This is not the Earth. Can it be Mars? Tian, aren't you beaten into a fool? The boy who was recognized by Tian curled his lips and scoffed. I'm back, I came back. Tian was stunned. He had a complicated look, happy and worried. He was originally a sophomore on the Earth. The Yi family was once a big family in Nanhai. When his family was in its prime, his parents ordered him a family, and he was the daughter of the Su family, Su Qing. However, later his parents were victimized by their enemies and their property was empty, so the Su family began to repent. Unfortunately, he didn't realize it. He hoped that Su Qing would continue to marry himself. With the help of Su's family background, he could find out the real murderer of his parents and avenge them. As a result, he was flatly rejected by Su Qing, and said that the engagement was invalid. When they argued, Niu Su, who had been pursuing Su Qing, arrived and knocked him unconscious. After that, Tian was in a daze. When he woke up again, he was in another world. A fantastic and colorful world of cultivation, Fengsuan spirit realm. Later, he was rescued by Ningyao of Qingming Blessed Land and brought into Qingming Blessed Land. Also in the Blessed Land of Qingming, he showed the talent of Dan Dao that made the whole square-inch spiritual realm tremble. In just 200 years, he became a great monk of Yupijing in the square-inch spiritual realm, and became the title of Emperor Dan. He even became a Taoist couple with Ningyao, who saved him and loved him for 100 years. He became the envy of countless people. But he became famous because of Dan. In the end, because of Dan, Qingming's blessed land was destroyed. Even Ningyao died. However, he never thought that he had gone to Fengsuan Lingyu because of Niu Su's fist, and now because of Feng Nidan's accident, he was knocked unconscious by Niu Su again. No! Since I can return to the earth, will Yaoer, who is better than me in cultivation, be reborn as well? Suddenly, Tian's mind suddenly came up with an idea that made him tremble with ecstasy. Without thinking, Tian closes his eyes and wants to send out his mind, looking for Ning Yao's qi. This but just for a moment, Tian opened his eyes and found that there was no Xian Yuan wave in his body. Xian Yuan, Shentong, Lingbao, is everything gone? After 200 years of cultivation, it's just a yellow sorghum. Tian clenched his fingers and murmured bitterly on his face. The next moment, he shook his head heavily and said, "No. Now I have the same talent of Dan Dao, and I also keep it in mind when practicing mental dharma. As long as I can refine pills and improve my strength, I can feel Yaoer's qi and find her." Today's Tian is no longer the ignorant young man on the earth in the past. He knows that even a monk of Yuanyingjing in Fengsuan spirit realm can walk freely on the earth without fear. A little mind can cover the planet and find the person he is looking for. In my previous life, I was totally incompetent. My parents were injured and my family property was taken away. I didn't even know who my enemy was. I lived in a muddle. I even pinned my hope on asking for a poor woman. Since God asked me to do it again, this time, I will make up for all my regrets. Those enemies who killed my parents, bullied me, humiliated me, and harmed me, you can't imagine that I, Tian, will be reborn as Emperor Dan. Tian's originally gloomy eyes are now shining more and more brightly, like a big sun leaping out of the ground, shining thousands of miles, marching forward bravely. Around the students looking at the face of Tian, suddenly feel that at the moment Tian, like a changed person, can be specific where changed, they for a time and some cannot say. Tian, you are not dead. I thought one blow killed you, weak chicken. But I warn you, don't approach Su Qing anymore, otherwise, you may be killed by me one day. A moment later, a tall and burly young man with long hair led several people to leave the crowd and walk to Tian, with a gloomy face and a cold way. This man is Niu Su, the son of Nanhai Niu family, one of Su Qing's pursuers. Niu Su. See Niu Su, Tian's eyes immediately a cold. In his last life, when his family was in decline, Niu Su felt that he had become a soft persimmon. In order to win Su Qing's favor, he constantly humiliated and bullied him. Even once, at the door of his class, Niu Su beat him to the ground in front of all his classmates, and then kicked him a few feet, which made his classmates laugh at him as a soft persimmon for half a month. Don't let me see Su Qing? It's easy to say. Tian smiles calmly, looks at Niu Su and says faintly, "Niu Su, you just hit me. Dare you let me rest for 3 minutes and give you a punch? Let's discuss this again." Although for today's Tian, Su Qing has passed away, even Ning Yao's hair is not as good. But a tree lives a skin, and a man lives a breath. Practice, practice. If you swallow your breath and don't even have the blood of revenge, then you're a piece of shit. What did Tian say? Is he teasing me? He wants to punch Brother Su? Did this guy really get hit in the head like an idiot? Soft persimmons want to be iron pimples today. Why don't they be called soft persimmons? As soon as Tian's words came out, the crowd around him froze in the same place. In their opinion, Tian is a poor man with poor family and poor strength. No one can imagine that he would say such a thing after he was beaten by Niu Su for half a day. 3 minutes? Ha ha ha, you're the mud. It's still mud after waiting for you for 100 minutes. Come on, just rest. When you have enough rest, if I don't beat you soft persimmon into a pool of mud, I won't be a cow, I'll be a leaf. Niu Su heard Tian's words, raised his head and laughed wildly, looking at Tian. Good. The cold light in Tian's eyes flashed. Without any hesitation, his hand suddenly grasped and felt the aura of heaven and earth. What a rarity! But on the first day of the new year, Tian immediately felt that the aura of heaven and earth on the earth was far too far from the square-inch spiritual realm, only a few thin threads. But even so, it is enough to deal with Niu Su. There's something wrong with this guy. As soon as the aura converged into the Yi celestial body, the students around immediately felt that Tian at this time seemed to have some differences from before. Although the figure is still thin, it has more awe-inspiring momentum, like a sharp sword coming out of its sheath. Tian, I've been waiting for you for 3 minutes. Just give me another punch. Nyosu looked down at the next time, and then clenched his fist, to the Yi Tian chest heavily hit. When he wants to come, this soft persimmon will definitely be beaten by himself and coma on the ground for another 2 hours, and be dried up by the hot sun. With a smile, Yi Tian raises his hand and grabs Nyosu's fist. To everyone's surprise, no matter how hard Nyosu works, even if his face is swollen, he can't push Yi Tian's hand back. You fist, you have been hungry for 5 or 6 days. Yi Tian smiles coldly, and there is no surprise in his eyes. Square-inch cultivation, cave, Guanhai, Longmen, Jingdan, Yuanying, Huashan, Yupu, Tiangong. Every level of promotion is a qualitative leap, and there is a world of difference. When you step into the cave, you can open your mind and absorb qi. The body's 365 orifices can absorb aura from heaven and earth. Although it's the beginning of cultivation, your physique can surpass the top figures in the world of sports. Your fist is like thunder and speed is like wind. No one can stop it and you will never forget it. Nyosu is really a big man, but compared with the practitioners, he is a scum. Now, it's my turn to punch you. The next second, Yi Tian's hand shakes, and at the same time he swings open Nyosu's fist, he takes a step forward, waving his fist dangling at his waist. Bang! This fist, fast, not wait for the students around to see how Yi Tian is out of the fist. Nyosu's body will be accompanied by a dull sound, directly fly back to 2 meters away. Immediately after that, his head tilted and he fainted on the ground. If you hit me twice, I'll give you 1. If you have another, I'll put it on the account first. Yi Tian sweeps his eyes at Nyosu who faints on the ground, turns around and walks out of the playground. Is this guy always pretending before? Shit, 1 punch 2 meters, Superman. There was a lot of discussion on the playground, and the students looked at Yi Tian's back, and their eyes were full of incredible shock. No one thought that Yi Tian, who had just been knocked unconscious by Nyosu, could hit Fei Nyosu with a fist. 5 minutes, downstairs. Small black umbrella, lotus root pink skirt, and a pair of lavender high-heeled shoes, graceful body, such as fairy Lin dust. Seeing this figure, Yi Tian's eyes immediately passed by a touch of sadness, but just for a moment, it disappeared. This woman is not his ex-fiancée Su Qing, and who can it be? If in the past, Yi Tian had hate and love for Su Qing, but now, it is as plain as water. What can I do for you? Yi Tian shakes his head, after approaching, light way. Here you are. It's just like Nyosu's medical expenses for hurting you. Forget me later. We are not people in the same world anymore. Su Qing hears the sound and turns his head in dismay. When he sees Yi Tian Ho, he reaches for a thick brown paper envelope from the bag and hands it to Yi Tian, saying faintly, I think it's more appropriate for you to give this money to Nyosu. Yi Tianchao glanced at the envelope, gave it a playful smile, and strode towards the door of the dormitory. That appearance, as if in his eyes, Su Qing's existence, has been like the air in strangers. Yi Tian, do you think that if you have courage with me, it will change my mind? I'll tell you, I don't want this. And even if I really change my mind, my father won't let us be together. Su Qing lang, and then looking at Yi Tian's back, cold way. Change your mind? You are so confident. Hearing this, Yi Tian turned around and looked at Su Qing calmly. He shook his head with a smile and said, but there's something you can say right. We are not people in the same world anymore. Let's go. This guy Su Qing looked at Yi Tian's back in a dazed way. His cheeks were slightly red, and he was more surprised than embarrassed. Yi Tian used to beat her, but now, is it because of Nyosu's awakening that she is no longer like that? After his eyes changed, Su Qing put the envelope back into his bag and turned to leave. Just, inexplicably, she felt a little lost at the moment, just like losing something. Stop, the school checks the accounts today. Those who don't pay the accommodation fee are not allowed to live in the dormitory anymore. I'll give you 10 minutes to pack up and move out. At the same time, Yi Tian just walked into the gate of the dormitory building, and was stopped by the dormitory mother, holding her hands in front of her chest, sneering. Move out of the dorm? Yi Tian was stunned, and then couldn't help laughing bitterly. He just forgot that since his parents died, the family's financial resources have been cut off, and his tuition and accommodation fees have not been paid for this semester. The hostess has urged him several times a few days ago, saying that if he doesn't pay again, he will be expelled. Auntie, wait a few days, and Tian will pay. You forget that he used to buy things here, and you are so kind-hearted that you have the heart to drive him out to sleep in the street and sleep in the open? At this time, a boy with a flat head came down from the stairwell and ran to the hostess. He said good words with a smiley face and winked at the angel Yi, indicating that he would say a few soft words. Shi Xiang. See flat-headed man, Tian heart a heat, more excited. Shi Xiong, his college classmate and roommate, is one of the few friends left after Tian's parents died. At the beginning, in Fangsuan Lingyu, Tian often remembered that when his parents died, he had no money in his pocket, and he was hungry. Shi Xiong, who was also poor in his family, secretly put some packets of instant noodles on his desk. Don't give me any more soul soup. It used to be before, but now it is now. If you don't have money, you can't live here. If the school finds out that he didn't pay to live here, I will be expelled. Just one word today, either pay or leave. Unfortunately, Su Guan doesn't like Shi Xiang at all. She waves her hand and shouts to Yet Ian. How can you do that? When Shi Xiong heard the speech, he couldn't help feeling a little anxious. Why, you can't manage without money? If you want to be unreasonable, hit me. As soon as she had a chest, she put her head in front of Shi Xiang. I can't live in this dorm. Seeing this, Tian says a light word to Su Guan's aunt. Then he grabs Shi Xiang's arm and walks towards the dormitory. Well, if you don't live in a dormitory, where do you live? This shrew is really inhuman. At the beginning, you bought so many things from her, and let her make money. Now you don't talk about love at all. When Shi Xiong went out, he sighed and said in a low voice, if only you took the money Su Qinggang just gave me. A gentleman loves money and takes it in a proper way. Tian smiles and shakes his head. He really needs money now, but some money can be taken, some money can't be taken. What do you do? Or you wait a little longer. When this woman comes back to her room, I'll give you a signal and you sneak in Shixiang Road. No, I'll find a way. It's just a place to live. It's not hard for me. Tian shakes his head, turns around and goes. After a few steps, he looks back at Shi Xiong with a bright smile and says, Stone, there is a saying that I have hidden in my heart for a long time. Thank you. Go away. We haven't seen each other for a few days. We've been hiding for a long time. Don't pretend to be deep in front of me. Shi Xiong was stunned. He waved and scolded with a smile. Then he said in a low voice, remember what I just said. If you can't, you'll come back. I'll watch for you. Tian smiles and nods, but his eyes are full of happiness and relief. This thanks, and Shi Xiong, not long, but with him, it is a full 300 years. This boy, it seems a little different. Shi Xiong looks at Tian's back and shakes his head. He always feels that something is wrong. At the same time, girls' dormitory building. Qingqing, I'll tell you the biggest news in the world. You can't believe it if you say it. When Su Qinggang walked into the dormitory door, her roommate Chen Yao came over and blinked her eyes. She didn't dare to put a channel on her face. A classmate just said that Tian had hit Niu Su 2 meters away with one blow. Now she is still dizzy. Tian stuns Niu Su day by day? When Su Qing hears the news, he can't help thinking of Tian's sentence that you'd better give Niu Su the medical expenses. This guy, why is the change so sudden? I can't go back to the dormitory, and it's not convenient to live in the dormitory. It's better to rent a house outside. Tian looks back at the dormitory building and decides to go around the school to see if there is a suitable house. But the next second, he touched his pocket, and a wry smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. After the death of his parents, his source of living has been cut off, and now there are only 600 people left in his pocket. It's not enough to go out for a big meal, let alone rent a house. After 200 years of cultivation, Tian, a great monk in Yupu, did not expect that he would worry about money one day. If you can't find a place to live in after 200 years of cultivation, you can be killed. After a smile, Tian calms down and walks out of the campus, thinking about how to make money. As for the matter of having a class, it is dispensable to him. Now the only thing in his mind is to find a place to settle down as soon as possible, improve his cultivation, and find the lost Ningyao. Guliulu, but at this time, Yi Tian's stomach is suddenly a burst of unyielding cry. Hearing this sound, Yi Tiankai remembers that he has only had one meal in 2 days in order to save money. It's still a bucket of instant noodles that Shi Xiong can't see. Just after practicing, he beat Niu Su and consumed a lot of physical strength. At this time, his body began to protest. Money is earned, not saved. I'm dandy. What's the matter with starvation? Yi Tian's eyes turned. He thought his past thought was ridiculous. He turned and walked to the snack street outside the school gate. After sitting in a noodle shop, he said, a bowl of beef powder, spicy, tiger skin eggs and dried seeds. Landlady Li Sua's promise, 2 minutes later, a bowl of hot beef powder fresh out. It's the taste that I haven't seen for a long time, it's so cool. At the entrance of a spicy fried flour, Yi Tian coughed, but his face was full of nostalgia and excitement. In the past 200 years of Fengsu and Lingyu, what he missed most was the hot taste of red and gorgeous. How long have you been hungry? You can eat a bowl of flour like this. It's the same as if you haven't eaten it in your life. This appearance made my aunt sympathize. Aunt, do you know where to rent a house? Just 2 requirements, quiet, cheap, the cheaper the better. At this time, Yi Tian looked up at her and asked with a smile. This kind of small restaurant, the most informed, but also the most economical, should know where to have their own needs of rental housing. The cheaper, the better. I just have a set in my hand, but... When she heard this, her eyes changed and she nodded in a hurry. Then she said, forget it. I'll take you to have a look first. You're satisfied. Let's talk about other things. Is there anything strange about that house? Yi Tian looks at her mother, but she doesn't ask much. At present, he only wants to be cheap, to be able to keep out the wind and rain, and to be quiet, so that he can practice without being disturbed. As for other things, it's nothing at all. Even if there is a strange, with his Dantian, all evil avoid easy. A few minutes later, Yi Tian followed her to an old house outside the campus, which was located in the deep of the old alley. This is the place I just told you. It's 2 rooms and 1 living room. The rent is cheap. You'll only be charged 500 yuan a month. There are water heaters, natural gas, cable and TV. They also meet your requirements. There are few people living around. It's usually quiet. Even if you look around the school, you can't find such a cheap place. After Aunt opened the door, she introduced the situation of the house to Yi Tian. Yi Tian nodded slightly. This rental house really meets his requirements. Although it is a little old, it looks clean around, and there is a small flower bed in the yard. The fragrance of flowers with the night wind is refreshing, and there is almost no other noise except cricket. It's really nice to rent a place like this at a rent of 500 yuan a month. Moreover, it's not far from school, so it's convenient for him to go to school. Even though the course is no longer so important to him, he is still a student after all. What's more, the death of his parents is strange, and the whereabouts of such a large fortune are unknown. He suspects that the real culprit may be staring at himself secretly. It's not a bad thing to live a life that is not very different from the past before we find the clues of the other party and find out the other party. After all, in retrospect, when he was on campus, he often felt as if someone was staring at him, but when he turned around and looked around, he got nothing. Of course, the most important thing is that, as far as he feels, the aura in this house is relatively good to the outside world. But there's one thing I have to make clear to you. The reason why it's cheap here is that the last tenant died here, so it's not very lucky. It's a vicious house. Now that I've made it clear, if you're afraid of regret in the future, I won't refund the rent. At this time, the landlady said another word to Yi Tian. I don't mind. But can you just pay 1 month's rent this time, and I'll supply you with the rest next time? Yi Tian shook his head at will. 200 years of cultivation, he had never encountered any strange things. The real ghosts died in his hands. How could he be afraid of a small house? Moreover, having experienced so many things, he knows very well that the terrible thing is not the devil, but the human heart. A month is a month. However, you said it yourself. If you regret it later, I won't refund it. This kind of abominable house can rent out already be regarded as burning high incense, and where can entangle rent, easygoing nod, then emphasize again. Yi Tian smiles at will, signs a contract with the landlord's aunt, and pays her the only 500 yuan left in her pocket. When Ad left, Yi Tian turned on the light of the house, scanned it carefully, and nodded with satisfaction. Although the landlady talked a little, she was still diligent. Cleaning the house spotlessly saved him a lot of time. This is... When walking to the corner of the yard, Yi Tian's eyes suddenly stagnated slightly, and then bent down to pick up a broken brick from the ground. On the broken brick, there are 3 deep cylindrical marks. That appearance, Yi Tian one I then see, it is the mark that the person finger leaves. He crushed the bricks with one hand. Did he die here before, or was he a practitioner? Yi Tian stares at the brick and throws it aside. The so-called family practice is nothing to a real monk. Since we are reborn, we have to start all over again. Which method should we choose to start with? When Yi Tian thought of this, his eyes suddenly changed. He used to be the emperor of Dan in Fengsuan spirit realm. He respected his status. In order to ask him for a pill, all kinds of cultivation methods and secret methods, he could take whatever he wanted. Therefore, there were no less than 10,000 cultivation methods in his mind. Sua Wangwen thought. After pondering for a long time, Yi Tian finally made a choice, but instead of choosing the Qingming Taoist formula he had practiced in the past, he chose a Buddhist monk who was dedicated to his idea of Sui Wang Temple in order to seek alchemy. According to the Sanshio, this dharma was obtained from the deep of an extinguished sun. It seems to have something to do with the Sui Wang, who once created an era in Fengsuan spiritual realm and ruled all the nationalities in the sky. As for Yi Tian's cultivation of Yupu realm at that time, he thinks that if this method is not just a remnant of Jindan realm, it is better than Tiandu's 10,000 methods. What's more, if you practice this method, you can gather a group of spirit fire. Fire is the source of elixir. As an elixir, he has a high demand for fire when refining elixir. If there is Linghua, he can get twice the result with half the effort. That's it. Without any hesitation, Yi Tian made up his mind, closed his eyes and thought, imagining that he was Sui Wang, living in the scorching sun. Boom! In a twinkling, the sun of 3 zhang radius suddenly began to gather towards Yi Tian, and then entered his body like a whale swallowing a cow. It can be seen that the idea of Sui Wang Temple is absolutely overbearing. In a moment, in the elixir field of Yi Tian, there is a weak golden flame, and the shadow is slowly generated. The golden flame appeared, and the speed of the sun was faster, from 3 zhang to 5 zhang. Even if there is someone in the yard, you will find that even the temperature in the yard seems to have dropped a lot at the moment. But in the distant sky, hanging in the dark and cold universe, the golden sun breathes light and heat outwards. Suddenly, a blazing flame splashes out. After a long time, it calms down. At the same time, half an hour later, Yi Tian opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. The golden light at the bottom of his eyes flashed away, like a golden flame swaying. But if you don't look carefully, it's hard to find it. It took me 3 days to cultivate Qingming Daoju. This idea of Sui Wang Temple only took half an hour on the earth with rare aura. It's really extraordinary. Yi Tian was stunned. At the same time, he clenched his fist, and his eyes were full of surprises. Ding ling ling. And at this time, he put aside the mobile phone, suddenly intense beep up. Yi, where did you live last night? Come to school quickly. It's Ice Devil's class in the morning. If she doesn't call your roll, she'll wait for her to fail. As soon as I got through, there came a loud and small cry from Xixiang. Ice Devil? Yi Tian's eyes changed slightly, and the Big Devil is the nickname of Yin Bing, the university ideological and political education teacher. Yen Bingren is very beautiful. She is the goddess in the eyes of many teachers and boys in the school. However, she is cold-blooded. She turns a blind eye to these courtesies and has extremely strict requirements for students. She calls the roll in class and fails in the end of the term. Yi Tian was absent from school once because of his parents' sudden death, but now he has only one chance left. Now that we have decided to keep a low profile before finding out the real culprit, we should start with a student who was worried about skipping class and being suspended. Okay, I'll be right there. Yi Tian put down his cell phone and said calmly, then he got up and walked towards the door. Yi Tian just walked out of the corner. Not far away, along the corner of the alley, came out a strong man in a black t-shirt, looking at his back coldly. In a moment, the strong man stood on tiptoe, his body was like a light ape, and then he climbed over the wall of the courtyard, landed in the yard steadily, and then carefully touched the room. But the strong man didn't find it when he walked into the room. On the wall not far away, a small girl was sitting in the corner, clutching a bag of melon seeds and looking at the strong man's every move with a smile. In half an hour, the strong man came out of the room with a face full of loss. After a few rounds in the yard, he turned over the wall and left. As for the thin girl on the wall not far away, after seeing the strong man leave, she got up and stretched a lot, looked down at the few melon seeds left in her hand, sighed and jumped down from the wall. But these two people did not notice. In the farther place, Yi Tian is standing at the top of a tall tree, quietly all income fundus. When he saw the brick yesterday, he felt that he would move in rashly because of his many years of monastic career, which might attract attention. Therefore, after leaving the rental house, he had more heart to see the news. Sure enough, everything was as he thought. However, even seeing this scene, Yi Tian didn't worry about anything. He jumped down from the tree and rushed to the campus. The little girl should be careless. As for the strong man, whether he is related to the house or the death of his parents, if he doesn't do anything best or wants to do anything, he will be unlucky if he bumps into Dante. Yi, hurry up. Nyosu takes someone to block you at the door of the classroom. If it's too late, it's too late. Yi Tiangang went to the teaching building downstairs, Shixiong in a hurry to welcome over, face nervous way. Nyosu has a good family background. Relying on his family's capital, he swaggers in Nanhai University. No one dares to provoke him in the whole school. Yesterday, in front of so many people, Yi Tian knocked him unconscious in the playground. How can this arrogant guy not keep revenge? Never mind. He just owes me a punch. Yi Tian shook his head and strode toward the classroom on the second floor. Leaf, don't. Shixiong wants to stop him, but seeing that Yi Tian has already gone upstairs, he can only scold him secretly, and then keep up with him. Yi Tian goes to the door of the classroom, and immediately sees Nyosu with 5 or 6 guys with big arms and round waists blocking the door. These people are all sports students of Nanhai University. They exercise every day and have a lot of strength. Yi Tian dares to come to class. He is not afraid of death. After beating Nyosu, this guy will not have good fruit to eat in school. Don't drag when you have money, but learn to be arrogant when you don't have money. This guy is ridiculous. At the sight of Yi Tian, the eyes of the whole class converged. There are many people who laugh at, despise and gloat. In this world, people who climb high and step low are always more than those who send charcoal in the snow. Nyosu, are you here to return the punch you owed me yesterday? Yi Tian ignores the comments of those students around him and goes straight to Nyosu. What did Yi Tiangang say? Is he making fun of Nyosu? Was this guy stupid yesterday? A word fell, the classroom door experienced a short period of quiet, thoroughly fried pot. Who would have thought that this guy, who has become so insecure and even cowardly because of his family's changes, should be so tough today? Is that ridiculous self-esteem in front of so many people? It seems that you don't know who you are if you don't give you some color. Nyosu Ben is to find face, now hear Yi Tian words, face more can hang, face twitch a few times, stretch out a finger to Yi Tian point, face gloomy way. With his words, those sports students, also holding arms, sneer toward Yi Tian around. Brother Su, this is a school and a place for classes. If you do this, you will be seen by the teachers, okay? Shixiang swallow saliva, carefully want to help Yi Tian say too, send away Nyosu. No? Since you dare to help him out, I'll let you know what's bad first. Nyosupi looks at Shixiong with a smile. He suddenly raises his hand and pulls it toward Shixiong's head. Shixiang wanted to hide, but he didn't dare. Nyosu's character is extreme. The more you hide when you beat someone, the more ruthless he is. Good, no, not you has the final say. However, at this time, Tian stretched out his hand forward. Brush. In a flash, Nyosu's wrist is just grasped by Tian. For a moment, Nyosu's facial features immediately twisted. He felt that his wrist was clamped by a pair of pliers. His fierce strength made him feel that his hand bone was about to break. The one you owe yesterday, now supply you. Closely following, the leaf day hand suddenly lifts up, a punch toward front flat beat to go out. Bang! With the sound of muffled sound, Nyosu immediately covered his stomach and squatted on the ground, like a fish out of the water. His mouth was wide open, and he gasped violently in silence. In front of him, Venus was flying in all directions. Chow, dare to fight Brother Su, you are really tired of living. Let's do it together. Let's get rid of this boy. Nyosu's students, who are good at sports, look at each other and rush forward to Tian. Tian looks like an old well, but he clenches his fist silently. In this life, he will never let himself be bullied again. He will return all the malice he once inflicted on him. If one is not enough, 2, 100, 1,000. What are you doing? But at this time, along the group of people behind, suddenly came a clear and beautiful low cry. Tiansong opened his fist and swept ahead. He immediately saw a cool woman in a black professional suit, gold glasses, shoulder-length black hair, crooked eyebrows and beautiful cheeks, but covered with a layer of frost. This cool and gorgeous woman is the ice devil in Shirshion's mouth, Yenbing, the teacher of the university thought class. Teacher Yen. As soon as the students around see Yenbing, they are ready to tell the whole story. Teacher Yen, Nyosu brought someone to block me at the door of the classroom and said that he wanted me to know who he was. Then, Tian suddenly twisted his face, covered his stomach, and trembled with pain. The trough. I'm the fucking victim, okay? Nyosu was paralyzed on the ground. Seeing this, people are about to vomit blood. He wants to appeal, but Yenbing is also the goddess in his heart. He can't express pain, for fear of hurting his image. Not to mention Nyosu, even Shirshion, who is most familiar with Tian, has some silly eyes. His memory of Tian died a face, and some words some clumsy, now how suddenly so thief. But he didn't know that Tian was not only practicing Taoism, but also cultivating his mind. All this, for him now, is already a pediatrics. Our class is going to class soon. Those who have nothing to do with it, leave immediately. Yenbing looks at Tian faintly, then looks at Nyosu on the ground, his face is slightly cold. With her words falling, those sports talents quickly ran over, picked up Nyosu and walked to the corridor. Tian, wait for me. As long as you are still in this school for a day, I will let you go for a day. When Nyosu passes by Tian, he presses his voice and threatens coldly. Tian's face is as usual. He has been practicing Taoism for 200 years. He has never seen any big waves. He doesn't know how many times he has met the threat of life and death. He is afraid of the threat of an ordinary person on the earth? Thank you, Mr. Yen. Next, Tian looks at the ice and says in a deep voice. Come into the classroom and get ready for class. Yenbing shakes his head and walks into the classroom. No thanks. Seeing this, Tian turns around and smacks at Shirshion's chest with a bright smile. At this moment, he finally looks like a 19-year-old. You are polite to me, boy. Shirshion, with a smile, reaches for Tian's shoulder and says in a low voice, after class, you have to tell me how you beat Nyosu. That's a good punch, no problem. Tian takes off a smile. If you only change yourself, what's the fun? Those who humiliate themselves will naturally fight back with fists. And such as Shixiang to his good people, of course, he wants to drop water of grace, Yongquan Shangbo. In the classroom, because of Yi Tiangon's action, there are many discussions, but Yi Tian just opened the book and looked through it from beginning to end, feeling a little. In the past, after a sudden change in his family, he once wanted to work hard to improve his grades and stand out to avenge his parents. However, when he saw the book, he knew every word, but when he put it together, he couldn't remember it. But now, just a glance, he has remembered all the content. The so-called learning is nothing more than memory and understanding, first memorizing, then understanding in an efficient way. I can't even remember it, so I can't understand it. But for me today, it's instinct to never forget. What's more, the things in these books are much easier to understand than the cultivation of Daoju, and now my brain is more efficient and calm in handling things than before. Yi Tian sighs in his heart, thinking that he used to be a complete academic scum. Now he has a taste of shueba. It's really something new. When the bell rings in class, Yan Bing opens her textbook. Instead of rushing to call the roll according to the usual practice, she scans the class and says faintly, "It's 2 months since the beginning of school. How many students can recite the whole book as I said at the beginning of school?" Yan Bing's words fell, and the classroom, which was originally a little low and noisy, was immediately silent and could be heard. Every student lowered his head like eggplant. University thought, more than 200 pages, text content. Reciting the whole book is too difficult. Even Shuaba can't do it. Recite the whole book? Yi Tian's eyes changed, and suddenly remembered that at the beginning of the school, Yi Tian had it at his fingertips now, and it was the same as the content in the textbook. What are the characteristics of the ideal? Yan Bing also slightly zhang, and then continued to. Ideal is the product of people's social practice. It is characterized by transcendence, realistic possibility, difference, and practicality. Yi Tianping replied. Hiss. In the class, the voice of inverted air conditioning slowly rings out, looking at Yi Tian's teasing and taunting eyes, and all changes greatly. Law means. Yan Bing stares at Yi Tian's clear eyes. After a careful look, she says slowly. In a word, Yi Tian and Yan Bing are just like experts in a duel. As they ask and answer questions, it becomes more and more difficult and the answers are faster and faster. While the students around are flipping through the books, they are shocked. Yan Bing's questions have no coherence, and they are all small knowledge points full of books, which has been a great test for teachers. What's more terrible is that Yi Tian's answer is as good as flow. It's really like a duel between two top swordsmen. How about you come and go? Around the students in the heart of admiration, but also a strong sense of loss. Shueja, why did you suddenly become Shueba? Is this unscientific? Well, I'm sure you can recite the whole book by heart. After a long time, Yan Bing wiped down, because of the extremely fast speed of speech, after the sweat from his forehead, he looked at Yi Tian and nodded with satisfaction, saying, How long did it take you to do it? Do you want to hear the truth or the lie? Yi Tian smiles and says, True or false? Yan Bing's rare corners of his mouth curve slowly. The lie is 2 months, the truth is 10 minutes. Yi Tianping replied. This guy, he began to put on airs and play these self-righteous humor again. Those envious students, with their mouths curled, think that Yi Tian must have been able to recite the whole book for 2 months to please Yan Bing. Yan Bingxi ignores the student's words and stares at Yi Tian tightly. She felt that Yi Tian didn't lie. He did seem to have taken only 10 minutes. But it's amazing that you can recite a 200-page book in 10 minutes? Very good, you sit down, we remember to learn from Yi Tian in the future. After a little silence, Yan Bing nodded and motioned for Yi Tian to sit down. Then she looked at the class and opened the textbook and said, Next, we'll start roll call. Hee, what about being in the limelight? Ice Devil didn't give you any green eyes. Funny people always do funny things, this is going to be a nerd in the future. Class students, see Yan Bing unexpectedly so understatement a word, let Yi Tian sit down, originally in the heart of sour they, immediately jokingly to Yi Tian. Yi Tian turns a deaf ear and just turns a book quietly. He just wanted to satisfy his previous regret, which had nothing to do with whether he got anything. Cow. There is a set of leaves. Next test, let me sit next to you only Shi Xiong, pointing his thumb at Yi Tian, is full of praise and is not stingy of his worship. 2 hours later, the bell rings after class, Yan Bing rolls up her textbook and leaves. Yi Tian, come to the office with me. But when she came to the door, she suddenly turned her head, looked at Yi Tian and said, Damn it! Miss Beauty, please. Those students who were originally reciting the whole textbook for Yi Tian but didn't receive any favor from Yan Bing immediately looked at Yi Tian in shock. After Yan Bing appeared in Nanhai University, she did not know how many teachers and students she attracted. But up to now, no teacher or student has been to her office with Yan Bing. Even how those people attract attention is not effective. But now, Yi Tian has broken this law. I can only tell you more about the way I hit Niu Su later. After Yi Tian hesitates, he smiles at Shi Xiong, and then gets up and walks to Yan Bing. What's wrong with the leaf? Why do I suddenly feel that I don't know him? Shi Xiong looks at Yi Tian's back and mutters enviously. Not only Shi Xiong, but also other students in the class have the same feeling. At this time is the end of the class, the office building, teachers and students come and go. Teacher Yan, are you free tonight? I heard that the Italian opera company came to Nanhai to perform Turandot and bought 2 tickets. Shall we go together? Just walked to the door of Yan Bing's office. A white-shirt male teacher who was obviously guarding here early welcomed him with a bright smile. Su Lai, a teacher in the Chinese department of Nanhai University, was secretly liked by many teachers and female students because of his handsome appearance and gentle and elegant temperament. Sorry, I have something to do. Yan Bing said faintly and shook his head. How about Western food? There's a new one outside the school. The decoration is very emotional. It's authentic New Yorker style. The steak and red wine are also very good. It's strange for me to eat alone. It's almost noon. Why don't we have a meal together? With a smile on his lips, Su Lai continued to smile. Behind his well-dressed gold glasses, his eyes swept back and forth on Yan Bing, flashing a few animal colors. From the moment Yan Bing entered the school, he made up his mind to hook this woman. No matter body appearance or temperament, Yan Bing is absolutely outstanding. What's more, Su Lai finds out from some channels that Yan Bing's life experience is unusual and has a bright future. Even Yan Fei, the president of Nanhai University, looks at her with new eyes. Otherwise, a teaching assistant in Yanbing district will not be able to enjoy the best treatment of having a single office and the best location of the office building. If we can catch up with such a woman, we will be in the fast lane. The position of head of Chinese department is just around the corner. Sorry, Mr. Yan and I have something important to talk about. I'm afraid we can't go with you. When Yan Bing's eyes flashed some irritability and impatience, Yi Tian stepped forward and looked at Su Lai. Yan Bing hears the sound and looks at Yi Tian in surprise. She didn't understand why this guy would suddenly stand up and speak for himself. Talk to the teacher, you student. Besides, you can have something important. Su Lai frowned slightly and looked at Yi Tian coldly. This face, he is not too strange, had heard of this family, in the campus bullied guy. However, he didn't expect that such a guy could be favored by Yan Bing and brought to the office by her for the first time. Is learning not important enough in Teacher Su's eyes? Why don't we discuss this with President Yan? Leaf Day eyebrow tip slightly picked for a while, light way. Su Lai's eyes were stunned. As a teacher, he certainly can't say that learning is not important enough. Just, be disturbed by Leaf Day like this, his facial expression instantly became difficult to see the pole. Haha, I'm kidding. Learning is really important. Then you're busy first. This classmate, what's your name? After Su Liepi doesn't smile, his eyes behind the gold glasses are slightly narrowed, and he reaches out his hand to Yi Tian. Don't you stupid student love to study? Today I will give you a lesson in life, let you know that stirring up other people's situation is to pay the price. Yi Tian with one leaf covering the sky. Yi Tianping smiles quietly and holds Su Lai's hand together. Good name, good. Su Lai laughs in the heart, but the strength on the hand suddenly increases. Want to give Yi Tian some pain, but not a second, his face instantly changed. Then his lips were clenched together, and a cold sweat came out of his forehead. Yi Tian's hand seems to be a vice, and the terrible force seems to break his hand. How can this skinny student have so much strength? Su Lai wanted to scream, but Yan Bing was beside him. He could not bear to lose face. He could only bite his mouth full of blood and tried not to let himself scream. Teacher Su, what are you doing? Hiss. At this time, Tian's facial features suddenly wrinkled together, pretending that his hand was pinched and hurt. At the same time, his hands burst out. What are you doing? Su Lai is about to vomit blood. His hands hurt but his heart is more painful. This boy, chicken thief, thief shouts to catch thief. This is not to let Yan Bing misunderstanding bullying weak. Mr. Su, I don't like opera, I don't like Western food, and I don't like you anymore. Don't pester me anymore. Yan Bing looked at Yi Tian and opened the door of the office. His face was slightly cold. A language falls, the teacher and students around the corridor immediately looked toward this side, look at Su Lai playfully. Su Lai's face was as embarrassed as swallowing a fly. He looked at Yi Tian and was about to burst out fire. It's not this kid who's making trouble. How could he need this? Mr. Su, you are pursuing Mr. Yen. Sorry, I don't know about it. But it's a pity that Miss Yen doesn't seem to like you. Why don't you go to the bathroom and look in the mirror? Hearing this, Yi Tian takes out his hand and looks at Su Lai with a playful smile. You'll see. Su Lai cannot know Yi Tian and intentionally say let him scatter bubble urine to look at mirror, then ferocious stare at him one eye, turn round angrily leave. Thank you for helping me, but you just pinched Mr. Su like that. He'll have a grudge. Yan Bing will Yi Tian into the office, with the door, and then looked at him. Didn't Mr. Su pinch me? Yi Tian picks his eyebrows and smiles. I have eyes. Yan Bing shook his head speechless. This guy is really addicted to catching thieves. Why do you help me? Followed closely, Yan Bing looked at Yi Tian doubtfully. I don't like his eyes. Yi Tian looks a little complicated, slowly. As he said, he didn't like Yan Bing, but he didn't like Su Lai's eyes. When he used to accompany Ning Yao and Fangsu and Lingyu, he saw too many eyes like Su Lai. Of course, those eyes of the master, the end is not very good. There is a guy who has been fluttering in the magma in the center of the earth for more than 100 years. There's another guy who should still be in the wild spirit realm, painting, dancing with those big and thick bull monsters. Yan Bing looks at Yi Tian strangely. Just at that moment, she felt that Yi Tian had a feeling of extreme vicissitudes. That kind of feeling, just like Yi Tian in front of us, has read thousands of mountains and rivers, experienced countless. But how can such a breath appear in such a young man? Last time you didn't arrive, I learned later that there was something wrong with your family. I've eliminated the record of absenteeism. You don't have to worry about it. Yan Bing is a little silent. She thinks that it may be her own illusion, so she shakes her head and signals to Yi Tian to sit down. Thank you, Mr. Yen. At that time I am too naive. Yi Tian smiles bitterly and slowly. After the death of his parents, he felt the whole world collapsed, wanted to revenge for his parents, and didn't know how to continue to live. He was poor, but his heart was higher than the sky, which caused a lot of jokes. He still remembers that Yan Bing didn't arrive when she called the roll. After he was absent from class, he seemed to want to make a big noise with her. Now it seems that at that time, I was really naive. Just did not expect. Yan Bing unexpectedly early inquired about this matter, voluntarily eliminated the record not to say, also apologized to oneself. It seems that the so-called ice devil is not really ice. If a man is not childish all his life, isn't he paying for his youth in vain? Yan Bing waved her hand with a smile, then looked at Yi Tian suspiciously and said, don't talk about these unpleasant things. You really recite the whole textbook of university thought in 10 minutes? Of course not. Yi Tian smiles and shakes his head. Yan Bing smells speech, the eye ground immediately flits over a wipe of disappointment. 5 minutes is enough. And at this time, Leaf Day pick eyebrow a smile, light way. 5 minutes? Yan Bing, the ice devil who was famous for his unsmiling, was shocked at the moment. After a long time, he doubted and said, are you kidding? Yi Tian smiles. He takes out a notebook from Yan Bing's desk, turns it over and says, Teacher Yan, you contested at will. March 20th. This is my diary. Yan Bing looks at Yi Tian suspiciously. After turning over a page, she just reads a sentence and exclaims. On March 20th, sunny, today Su Lai's fly came to haunt me again. Looking at his face with human face and animal heart, I really want to step on his face, rub and rub again, and trample the garbage into a pool of blood. Unfortunately, a little bit. On March 21st, the rain made the fly feel more and more intense when it stepped on the sole of its foot. The school is very boring, the teachers are more boring, the students are boring, such a life, really not fun. More and more missed the days on the mountain on March 22nd, it was overcast, empty, lonely and cold. Those silly students are so funny. Do they think I don't know they call me Ice Devil? I just want to make you think I'm cold, otherwise how can it be fun? However, it seems that I am tired of playing so coldly. Do you want to change a style? For example, how many outsiders do you want to rub? At this time, Tian's smile is indifferent. After 3 days of content, he laughs and says to Yan Bing, "Teacher Yan, girls are so violent. They always want to rub others on the ground. It seems that it's not good. Who can imagine that the famous Ice Devil is such a violent and funny guy in his diary?" If Su Lai knew that what Yan Bing wanted to do most was to rub him under his feet. According to the character of the goods, would he be scared to pee, or would he be so sweet that his saliva would flow down 3,000 feet? Brush. Yi Tian's words fall down. Yan Bing's face is always covered with frost color, and 2 groups of blushes rise in an instant. However, her eyes were full of strong shock. What Yi Tian just read out is exactly the same as what she wrote in her diary. She even read out the ellipsis. This guy, how terrible memory should he have in order to never forget? But then, she thought of a more terrible thing than Yi Tian's amazing memory. Since Yi Tian never forgets, doesn't he say that the contents of his diary have been kept in his mind? You know, in that diary, she wrote a lot about what she should and shouldn't say, and even recorded some of her private affairs in it. In this way, don't you say that you don't have any secrets in front of Yi Tian at this moment. Teacher Yan, I just made it up. You are so cold and kind-hearted. How can you write the words that rub people under your feet? Yi Tian has also thought of this fatal problem at the moment, eyes are not blinking, dry smile way. This show is like digging a hole and jumping into it. How much did you just remember? Yan Bing doesn't eat Yi Tian at all. He stares at his eyes, and his powder fist creaks. 1 in 5. Yi Tian is in a hurry. Boom. 1/3. Yi Tian is a little guilty. He peeks at Yan Bing, his hands folded together, and seems to be warming up. Click. Well, I admit, I remember it all. But Mr. Yan, you have to believe that I can't be blamed for this. If you want to blame me, you have to blame God. Who let him give me such a good memory? Yi Tian sighs and admits defeat completely. You. Yan Bing's nose is almost crooked. This guy, rude, sounds like sophistry, but how can he aftertaste and boast? What does God give him such a good memory? How can this sound so irritating? You just saw the content, must forget all, otherwise, my discourse, you don't think about. Yan Bing takes a deep breath. After calming down, he looks at Yi Tian's coldly threatening way. Why am I here? Who am I? Yi Tian hears the sound, and immediately shows a loss on his face, just like a pair of amnesia. Yan Bing looks at him pretending to be stupid, and his nose is almost crooked. This guy's performance, how to look at it, how to make people think that it's daydreaming to expect him to keep his mouth shut. Teacher Yan, do you want me to come here? Is it because of my good performance? What should I be rewarded for? But at this time, the Leaf Day timely diverged the topic, smilingly way. Daydream. I want you to come here just to tell you that I remember your truancy last time. Yan Bing's diary is all read by Yi Tian. Naturally, he is too lazy to disguise the image of Ice Devil in front of Yi Tian. After he looks white, he says, "Now hurry to disappear from my mother, otherwise, I'm afraid I can't help pressing you on the ground." Goodbye, Mr. Yan. Hearing this, Yi Tian can't help but feel speechless about Yan Bing's violent tendency. But he still goes down the slope, nods, and then walks out of the office. I warn you, if I hear half a word about diary outside this office, you'll wait for me to scratch on the ground in the middle of the school canteen at noon every day. Just when Yi Tian's hand touched the door handle, Yan Bing's murderous voice came from behind Yi Tian. Is this girl a friction controller? Why do you always want to rub others? But then again, in the dining hall where at least 2 or 3,000 students gather at noon every day, the ice devil, though not so ice, is a bit right. When Tian heard this, he almost fell down. He nodded and quickly left the right and wrong place. Smelly boy, if it's not that I can't take the things you see and out of your head, if I don't press you on the ground and rub you for hundreds of times, I'll be sorry for the nickname you gave me. Yan Bing waited until Tian left, lying on the table, her chest trembling on the edge of the table. When she said cruel words, a punch hit the table, trembling with the table trembling, rippling waves. That is a shocking. But he has a good memory, a good strength, and a first-class ability to pretend to be a fool. I've been here for so long, and I've finally met a guy who is a little bit interesting. If you teach this guy well and send him to the mountain, won't you have a lot of fun? After a long time, Yan Bing was lying on his desk, and he didn't know what he thought of, so he burst out laughing. If Tian is here, he will get goosebumps when he sees Yan Bing smile. There are only 2 words to describe the smile of finding a wonderful toy: fool. I didn't expect that the famous ice devil was so violent and funny in private. At the same time, after Tian left the office, he wiped the sweat on his forehead and couldn't help shaking his head and laughing bitterly. If you put it in the past, even if you kill him, you can't imagine that the ice devil has such a side. In particular, there are some bold and violent words in the diary. Even Tian, who has been practicing Taoism for 200 years, can't help blushing, heart beating and sweating. But it's not surprising that if you are a serious person, who will keep a diary? Your name is Tian, right? I tell you, today you broke my business. I let you eat not to take away. Don't forget, in this school, I am the teacher of heaven at this time. Su Lai suddenly came out along the corner of the corridor, looking at Tian with no smile, and threatened coldly. Then don't forget my name. It's a leaf covering the sky. Leaf Day pick eyebrow a smile, full face of indifference, turn round to go downstairs. Just like Su Lai, another 1,000 will be just like that. He thought that on that day, he had to ask himself whether the leaf agreed or not. Damn. Su Lai looks at Tian's back, jumps his feet and makes rude remarks, and his eyes behind his gold glasses turn around. 5 minutes later, downstairs. Yi, what good did Mr. Yan give you? What does her office look like? Is it as cold and unpopular as she is? Guard at the door of the stone mail as Tian came, quickly ran to come, full face look forward to way. It's no good. It's just that we've eliminated the record of absenteeism last time. As for her office, it's similar to what you said. Tian smiles, but now I recall that Yan Bing's office is not really cold. To be exact, it seems that there are still some pink and delicate decorations. Is it hard to say that under the appearance of Yan Bing's violence and doobie, there is a pink girl heart? Tut tut, you are really the ice devil. Sure Xiong didn't feel anything wrong. After nodding, he looked at Tian and asked, where did you live last night? Is there enough money in hand? My family paid for my living expenses yesterday. If not, I'll take some for you first and find a small hotel to make do with it for 2 days. No, I rented a house. Hearing this, Tian felt warm in his heart. Then he took out a piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Shi Xiong, saying, didn't you ask me how I could beat Nyosu like that? That's the reason. If you exercise according to this thing, you can beat 10 or 8 Nyosu in the future. It won't be a problem. What is this? Martial arts secret script. Shi Xiong excitedly took the paper and looked at it. When he saw that some villains were drawing on it, putting out all kinds of movements, and a pithy formula, he couldn't help looking silly. Well, I used to know an expert in my family. He left me something. I practiced it like this. Tian smiles, his eyes are deep. This thing is indeed a secret script, but it is more precious than the secret script. Because, according to Tian, Xiong's roots and bones are not suitable for cultivation, but more suitable for training. Therefore, this is a training skill of Fengsuan spiritual realm. In the square-inch spiritual realm, besides the people who practice Taoism, there is also a kind of people who practice body, also known as pure Wufu. He is a pure warrior. He pays attention to fighting and achieves the great master's realm. Although he is not as good as moving mountains and seas, he can also crack the city wall with his fists and the river with his hands. He is full of vigor and vitality. All evils will not invade him, and 1,000 armies will be conquered. Even the man with the most powerful body plays with thunder like a snake. Yi Tian's body refining skill for Shi Xiong is in the top 3 even if it is put in the square-inch spiritual realm. If you take it out, I don't know how many pure martial artists will break their heads to grab it. Practice well. I'll take care of you. Yi Tian smiles at Shi Xiong and says slowly. In the cold winter, you give me a charcoal fire, now, I will give you a piece of light. You didn't fool me? Shi Xiong looks at Yi Tian suspiciously and says. I've seen a lot of martial arts secrets in novels and movies, but in reality, who has seen them? You have meat to eat? Or will you lose a piece of meat if you practice? Yi Tian picks eyebrow to smile, looking at the stone mailway. That's not true. Shi Xiang scratched his head and laughed. Well, you remember to practice well. There is no class in the afternoon. I'll go back to live there by myself. Yi Tian gives Shi Xiong 2 white eyes at random, raises his hand, and walks towards the school gate. Thank you, Yi Yi. Shi Xiong sees this and yells at Yi Tian. Go away. Yi Tian too didn't reply. He laughed and scolded. Shi Xiong, with a smile, turns over the secret script and goes back to the dormitory. Between brothers, never say thank you, a roll word is enough. Just walked 2 steps, Yi Tian suddenly saw a lotus pink dress, just like Su Qing coming out of the picture scroll, and a few girls came from the former Fang Pingting. As soon as I saw Yi Tian, Su Qing, who was talking and laughing with those girls, the smile on his face froze immediately. Yi Tian put his hands in his pocket, like a leisurely walk, self-care from her side, and even brushed past, even the eyes did not move. In the past century, people have changed a lot. When they look back, they are strangers. Qingqing, why didn't this guy bother you today? I heard that Yi Tian beat Niu Su at the door of the classroom today. This guy has changed his way of chasing you, hasn't he? If you want me to say that, this guy must finally see the truth and know that he can't catch up with our family. Looking at Yi Tian's back, the little sisters around Su Qing chirp, or curious, or ridicule, or joke. Don't talk nonsense. Su Qing waved his hand and interrupted several little sisters, but his eyes could not help looking at Yi Tian's back. I don't know how, when she saw the figure, her heart was relieved, inexplicably lost. At the school gate. It's not clean. Yi Tian sweeps his eyes at the school gate. When he sees Niu Su leading a dozen strong men in black, he shakes his head speechless. Yi, do you see that your good days have come to an end from today? I mean what I say. As long as I'm in school for a day, I'll make you feel like you can't afford to go away for a day. As soon as he saw Yi Tian, Niu Su immediately surrounded him with the strong men in black. These strong men, no less than those sports students, are all professional bodyguards he called from his father's company. They all retired from the team. They have not only a few strength in hand, but also fierce moves. He believed that this time, he would give Yi Tian some color. The students at the school gate look at Yi Tian sympathetically. It's not good to provoke anyone, but Niu Su, who is the most vengeful. Isn't it that you can't find pleasure for yourself? Stop the ink. Let's do it together. The leaf day lifts an eyelight to sweep those black dress bodyguard one eye, calm way. Boy, that's arrogant. Hearing Yi Tian's words, a bodyguard in black probably wants to show himself in front of Master Niu. He strides forward and hits Yi Tian's head heavily with one punch. Arrogance is because I have the ability to be arrogant. Yi Tian smiles and waves at will. Bang! In a flash, a dark shadow flew backward, 2 meters away, and fell into the fountain pool at the school gate, splashing all over the ground. The school gate was quiet for a moment. The needle can be heard. All people's eyes are focused on Yi Tian. No one can see clearly, Yi Tian just how to move, only saw the black bodyguards flying. Niu Su is gloomy and stares at Yi Tian. He looks at the black bodyguard in the pool in disbelief. That guy, falling in the water, struggled for a long time and didn't get up. He was humming and hawing, obviously beaten hard. Not only him, but also the other bodyguards in black were awe-inspiring. They are not stupid. How can they not know that Yi Tian has just been able to fly his companions with a fist? He is definitely not a weak hand. If he takes it lightly, his companion's present situation is their end. Together. Niu Su's eyes changed and he made a quick decision. He waved his hand and said in a loud voice. Suddenly, those bodyguards in black rushed to Yi Tian's direction. Moreover, with the signature of the front car, none of these people dare to underestimate Yi Tian, and they all put out 10% of their strength. Yi Tian Chao. This group of people aimed at the eye, the corner of the mouth curved, tiptoe, not dodge, toward the crowd. Bang. He jumped up and raised his knee. His knee immediately hit the chin of the black bodyguard in front of him heavily. A heavy blow was like a shell hit, and the black bodyguard fell to the ground with blood in his mouth. One hit, Yi Tianren in the midair changes moves, lift the knee, toward the front, decisive suddenly swept. This foot fell like a fighting machine with heinous precision, and it could fall on the carotid artery of the necks of the other black bodyguards. Bang! 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 With the dull sound, the remaining 10 or so bodyguards in black, like dominoes overthrown, fell to the ground one by one, convulsing and howling. This scene, like a rehearsal, after countless times, finally presented in the big screen action blockbuster. And Yi Tian is worthy of the leading role. Niu Su stood in the same place in a daze, looking at the black bodyguards who fell to the ground and screamed, at a loss. He is not a fool. No matter how stupid he is, Yi naivete is a tough stubble. Today, I'll make it clear to you that I'm not interested in Su Qing, but if you pester me again like a fly, as long as I'm in school for a day, you'll be fed up for a day. Yi Tian walks to Niu Su with a condescending light sentence. Then he lifts his right fist and leans on his waist. Then he makes a sudden effort to hit Niu Su like a shell. Dong! With a dull sound, Niu Su's whole body immediately flew up like a broken kite, and then fell heavily on the wall not far away. After sticking it for a long time, he slowly fell to the ground. Oh poof! Next, Niu Su's face turned pale, covered his stomach, and vomited crazily. In the vomit, there were spots of blood. Inside and outside the school gate, there was silence. Everyone's eyes are staring at Yi Tian tightly. That look, there is shock and surprise, but more, it is creepy. Take care of yourself. Yi Tian calmly glances at Niu Su, and then strides in the direction of renting a house. Breathe slowly, blowing young hair cape, lightly not touch the dust, as if the former Jade Pu territory dandy, reappear the world. The money is almost used up. We have to find a way to make some money. Just, who can think, this seemingly dust-free youth heart, but now is full of copper smell. Amulet. Yi Tian Gang did not take 2 steps. When he saw the peach forest at the gate of the campus, he stopped and his eyes lit up. Peachwood is one of the few wood on the earth, which is not only common, but also easy to accept the aura of heaven and earth. He immediately went into the peach garden, picked some peach branches and prepared to make some simple amulets. Although the amulet made of peach branches is less effective than 1/millionth of that made of spirit wood, it is more than enough for ordinary people on earth to eliminate some minor disasters. After 5 simple peach amulets were carved in the peach forest, the night had fallen. Yi Tian rode a bicycle to the gate of the city hospital and sat quietly on the curb. While selling amulets, Yi Tian absorbed aura from the sky. At the beginning of the Lantern Festival, the crowd passing by the hospital gate saw the appearance of the teenagers, and their mouths showed disdain one after another. These days, the world is really in decline, even the students are starting to come out and pretend to be masters. Yi Tian turned a blind eye to these people's eyes, as if the breeze was blowing on his face. Baoshan is in front of him, but he has only mortal eyes and can't tell the true from the false. Why should he be angry for these people? 200 years of cultivation, and the achievement of Dante, his heart, already depressed as the ocean, heaven and earth collapse in front, and calm. In this world, the aura is too thin. Although Sua Wangwen's idea is overbearing, his harvest is really limited. In a flash of time, at midnight, Yi Tian put his posture back and shook his head gently. After 6 hours of cultivation, his cultivation is still stagnant in the first level of the cave, and even has not reached perfection. If you put such a slow entry speed into the square-inch spiritual realm, you are afraid to be laughed off. What's more, it's a pity that no one has bought his amulet for such a long time, not even the Inquirer. How do you sell these amulets? At this time, a girl in a white dress, who was about to enter the hospital, suddenly stopped and half-squatted in front of the booth. Her delicate hands took those amulets and looked at Tian. Tian looks down. The girl is about 20 years old. She is tall and pretty. She has a pair of sword eyebrows. Her elegant temperament is full of heroism. Even Su Qing, who is known as the schoolflower, will be eclipsed in front of her. $10,000 apiece, no counteroffer. But Tian just glanced at him, then took back his eyes and said, "This talisman has the ability to drive away evil spirits, avoid evil spirits and eliminate disasters. As long as it's not a dead person, wearing it on his body, he can get better in any disease." Gerlingchi's brow can't help but wrinkle, obviously don't believe Tian's words. Ningshui, these are all swindlers who use the guise of masters to deceive people who are in urgent need of medical treatment. Don't waste time with him. We'd better go to see your grandfather quickly. At the same time, a tall and handsome man behind the girl, looking at Tian with a sneer, urged. "Lin Feng, if you are in a hurry, please help yourself. I don't need you to tell me what to do." Rather Snow turns ahead to look at tall man, the tone is icy cold way, obviously have no favor to the other party. "Can you sell this amulet cheaply?" Next, Ning Shui looks at Tian and continues to ask. "Your name is Ning?" Leaf Day stares at Rather Snow to see, light way. "What's the matter?" Rather Snow, a pair of sword eyebrows tiny as cu, don't understand Leaf Day why ask this. "Nothing." "Good surname." Tian shook his head, a faint smile, and then said, $5,000, you take it. The amulets he made, which he bought for 10,000 yuan, also made a lot of money. However, since the other party has the same surname as Ning Yao, he doesn't mind a 50% discount. Can't it be cheap? Rather Snow was silent for a moment, the way. "If you don't want to buy it, please." Tian shook his head, light way. "Dead liar, $5,000 to sell a peach tree pimple, you want money to be crazy, don't you?" As soon as he heard that Tian didn't sell for less than 5,000 yuan, Lin Feng, who had just been robbed by Ning Shui, immediately got angry and raised his foot to stamp heavily on the amulets on Tian's stall. Tian's eyes were slightly astringent, without any fluctuation. "Lin Feng." Seeing this, Ning Shui immediately turns back and rebukes Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't give up, and his foot still fell hard. Just when he fell to the position less than 2 inches away from those peach amulets, the amulet nearest to his foot suddenly flashed. But the speed of the light, very fast, and the light is very light, so no one noticed. Bang! At the same time, Lin Feng's body suddenly fell back like an electric shock and fell nearly 1 meter away. "If you don't want to buy it, just go." "I don't want to buy it or sell it." Tian didn't move. He said calmly. "Amulet has the ability to eliminate disasters spontaneously. Lin Feng's foot is no different from falling on the iron plate." Ning Shui stares at Tian and looks carefully. The light in her eyes is changeable. Just now, she didn't see Tian's hand at all, but Lin Feng, such an adult, can't appear the situation of stepping on empty feet? "Sorry, I'm not familiar with him. I'll take a piece of this amulet." After a moment, Ning Shui reaches out her hand and picks up an amulet, and turns it to Tian. After a sum of money, she says, "It's okay to wear it on the patient. This amulet can be used twice. It's no harm to wear it often when you get well." Tian looked at the amount of the next account and told him at will. "I hope I can accept your good words. With the money, you can buy something to eat." Ning Shui picked up the peach amulet and looked at it carefully. She found that there was nothing unusual after she started. A little loss passed in her clear eyes, but it soon disappeared. Then she picked up the amulet and walked towards the hospital. When she bought the amulet, she just felt that Tian was sitting there looking pitiful. She wanted to do some good deeds and accumulate merits for her seriously ill grandfather, hoping that he would recover soon. "Rubbish, I'll settle with you another day." At the same time, Lin Feng sees Ning Shui leave and struggles to get up from the ground. He points to Yi Tian and scolds him angrily. Then he catches up in a hurry. It turns out that I'm pathetic. I'm as kind as she is. Yi Tian looks at Ning Shue's back. His eyes are long. The back and a back engraved in his soul can't help but coincide. After a long time, he shakes his head, puts away the things on the stall and says with a smile, "But do good, don't ask about the future." I don't know if I'm feeling Ning Shui or myself. After getting up, Yi Tian turns around and goes to an alley beside the hospital. On the way here, he saw that there were night market snacks. Now he was just on the first floor of the cave, and he could not open up a valley. He would starve to death if he didn't eat. Especially now, this body, since its parents left, has been starving. Otherwise, it won't be knocked unconscious and sympathized by Ning Shui. "Grandson, I didn't expect that you are young. You have a lot of money cheating skills. You just made a lot of money. But do you know the rules of this street? If you make money, you want our brothers to take 50% of it. Behave yourself, pay the money quickly, otherwise, I will kill you." Yi Tiangang came to the entrance of the alley. From the shadow, he came out several ferocious-looking gangsters who painted dragons and tigers. After he was surrounded, he was scared by his poor eyes. "Shoot me?" Yi Tian sweeps his eyes at the leading gangster, smiles indifferently and says, "I beg you, do it quickly. If you don't kill me, you are not a man." "I'll go, boy, you are very arrogant." The leading thug was stunned. He could hardly believe that this skinny boy with a good face dared to talk to himself like this. "Just do it. Don't waste my time," Yi Tian said indifferently. For him now, the most precious thing is time. If you practice for one more minute, you'll be one step closer to finding Ning Yao. How can you waste time with these things? If I don't beat you up, you don't know who you are. The leading thug is furious and hits Yi Tian's chest with one punch. Yi Tian's expression remained unchanged, and he gave his fist forward at will. Bang! The two fists touch each other, and the leader's face is full of grimace, which instantly becomes distorted. He felt that his fist seemed to hit a shell out of the barrel. The fierce force made him feel that the bone of his wrist was about to break when he opened his fist. How is that possible? The leading gangster has always been very proud of his strength, but now, in front of Yi Tian, he is just a young man with a bright face and looks like he has been malnourished for a long time. Bang! But in this matter, Yi Tian's fist has already fallen on his chest after swinging his opponent's fist. With a howl like killing a pig, the leading thug fell to the ground, holding his chest and crying. It seemed that he would lose his breath if he was out of breath. "Are you coming?" Leaf Day indifference to other several face mutually looked out of the Hun after sweeping an light way. Those gangsters looked at each other, dragged the boss in a hurry and ran away. Are you kidding? Even the most fierce boss is not an opponent. Do they rush to send Kada to each other again? "Boss, a bowl of beef brisket powder, double beef brisket, more spicy." Yi Tian swept them indifferently, walked into the powder stall in the snack lane, sat down, stretched out his hand and said in a loud voice, "Make money without meat, stupid." At the same time, Nanhai City Hospital, Intensive Care Unit. "Mr. Lin, you are here." After seeing Lin Fong, a middle-aged couple immediately showed a smile on their face and hurriedly welcomed him. They said eagerly, and then said to Ning Shui, "Xiuxue, go and get some fruit for Mr. Lin soon." "Grandfather, I came to see you." Rather snow to the middle-aged men and women's words said if not heard, just went to the bed, hold the bed that where the old man's hand, eyes glittering, low-call way. This old man is Ning Shui's grandfather, Ning Zhongshan. As for the middle-aged couple, they were her uncle Ning Hao and Aunt Chao Hui. Ning Shui's parents left early when she was a child. It was Ning Zhongshan who brought her up. However, half a year ago, Ning Zhongshan had a car accident. Since then, he has been ill in bed, delirious and confused, and has become a vegetable. Even with a lot of treatment, he has not improved. The older the child is, the more disobedient he is. "Mr. Lin, I'll make you laugh. Please sit down and I'll help you cut the fruit." Chao Hui glared at Ning Shui discontentedly. She took out a mango from the fruit basket beside her and said coldly to Ning Shui with tears, "Don't shout. The doctor said that your grandfather can't hear any sound now. He called in vain. If you want me to say, it's better to pull out the pipe and suffer less than to suffer so much." "What are you talking about?" Ning Shui hears the sound, eyes brush a cold, looking at Xiao Hui coldly way. The look in her eyes made Xiao Hui feel cold, and she could not help but hide. "Xiao Xue, how did you talk to your aunt?" Seeing this, Ning Hao looked at Ning Shui and scolded coldly, and then said, "What your aunt said is right. What your grandfather is doing now, isn't it suffering to live?" Ning Shui is silent, just holding Ning Zhongshan's hand tightly. "Uncle Ning, our family knows several foreign experts. I'll invite them over in 2 days and ask them to give grandfather Ning a careful physical examination. Maybe there will be a way." After Lin Feng's eyes turned, he laughed at Ning Hao. "How can I trouble you, Lin Xiao?" Ning Hao waved his hand. "Xiao Xue's business is my business. If there's any trouble, it's settled," Lin Feng said with a smile. Ning Hao hears the sound, the eye immediately peeps out a touch of joy. The Lin family is the largest family in the South China Sea, and Lin Feng is the heir of the family. Although the Ning family is not bad, it is not a bit worse than the Lin family. If Ning Shui can marry Lin Feng, his status will soar in the South China Sea. "Xiao Xue, are you quick to thank Mr. Lin for being so kind to you and helping us?" Xiao Hui is also a burst of hot heart, and then to Ning Shui duodao. Ning Shui said nothing, just picked up the amulet bought from Yi Tian and carefully hung it on Ning Zhongshan's neck. When the peach amulet touched the skin of Ning Zhongshan's neck, the invisible light green breath immediately moved slowly towards Ning Zhongshan's body. "What is this?" Seeing this, Xiao Hui hurriedly took a look. Ning Shui is silent, just with a hope in her eyes, looking at Ning Zhongshan. "This is an amulet that Xiao Xue just bought for 5,000 yuan outside the hospital," Lin Feng said with a smile. 5,000 for such a broken piece of wood? Xiao Hui tut twice, looking at Ning Shui, said, "Xiao Xue, you are really bewitched. If you can believe this kind of charlatan, it's not that all sows can go up the tree. Your grandfather's situation is useless even for the best doctors in Nanhai. Can the charlatan's method be effective? You just like to spend the money." Ning Hao also shook his head. "Uncle and aunt, don't worry, I can't spare that little liar. In the past 2 days, I'll take him out and clean him up so that he won't dare to come out and cheat again." Seeing this, Lin Feng quickly patted his chest and flashed a fierce light at the bottom of his eyes. Because that little swindler, he lost a big face in front of Ning Shui today, how can he not find this place? Mr. Lin is really eager for justice, honest and kind. Ning Hao and Xiao Hui rushed to Lin Feng in a hurry and gave him a thumbs up. Xiao Xue. Just when Ning Hao and Xiao Hui were madly praising Lin Feng, an old weak call came from the hospital bed. Brush. This sound, although low, but in a flash, all people's eyes fell on Ning Zhongshan's body. Wake up! The next second, Ning Hao and Xiao Hui can't help but stare big eyes. They see Ning Zhongshan, who has been in a coma for half a year, and their eyes open at the moment. And that look, still quite God. Grandfather, you wake up. Ning Shui was also stunned. After a long time, she threw herself on the old man and cried with joy. Good boy, don't be afraid, Grandpa is okay. Ning Zhongshan touched Ning Shui's hair and said softly. Go and get the doctor. Ning Hao also full face of disbelief, Lung Lang, to Xiao Hui loud wait. More than 10 minutes later, the doctor came and examined carefully to make sure that Ning Zhongshan really recovered his mind. How did the old man wake up? What external stimulation did you get, or what did you give him to eat? After checking, the doctor asked with an incredible look on his face. Ning Zhongshan has been in a coma for half a year. Today's ward round has not yet recovered. Now he has come to life. It's a miracle. We didn't do anything, and we didn't give anything to the old people. Xiao Hui is suspicious. Ning Shui hears the sound, and her sight falls on the peach amulet in Ning Zhongshan's neck. I didn't do anything, but my grandfather woke up. Is it because of this peach amulet? Miracle. It's really a miracle. Congratulations. The patient is in a good condition. After a period of rest, he will recover. The doctor didn't find Ning Shui's abnormality. After 2 exclamations, he left the ward. Xiaoxue, just when the doctor asked, "How did you look strange?" Ning Zhongshan loves her granddaughter most. When she wakes up, she pays attention to Ning Shui. She just looks strange and has a good view. I think the reason why you wake up may be that I bought you this peach amulet from the master. Ning Shui hesitates and tells Ning Zhongshan the whole story. Nonsense, that kind of charlatan, I think it's just a coincidence. Xiao Wei disdains to curl her lips, and doesn't believe Ning Shui's statement at all. That guy is about our age. How could he be a master? Lin Fan was also very upset and muttered. As the saying goes, it's hard to say that real people don't show their faces. Whether it's related to him or not, I really woke up after wearing the peach amulet he sold. This is fate. Xiaoxue, you can see him another day and thank him for me. When Ning Zhongshan was young, he went south and north. He heard a lot of anecdotes. He waved his hand and interrupted Lin Fang's words. Then he told Ning Shui. Then he picked up the peach amulet from his chest. After looking at it, he wondered, how can this amulet still crack? Cracked? Ning Shui hears the sound and walks over in a hurry, staring at the peach amulet. As far as I could see, there was a thin crack in the middle of the peach amulet. But what makes Ning Shui confused is that when she bought it back before, she checked it carefully, and there was no crack on it. Grandfather is well, but the amulet has split a crack. Could it be that the amulet helped grandfather eliminate a disaster? Ning Shui's heart is full of doubts. She is more and more curious about that young man with vegetable color and wants to see him again. Lin Fan looks at Ning Shui's appearance, and his eyes are more fierce. He pinches his hand tightly. More than 10 minutes later, Tian returned to the rental house. Cultivation requires perseverance. When Tian comes back to his house, he sits down with his knees crossed and his 5 hearts facing the sky. He silently starts to think about the idea of Sui Huang Temple, to see the sun and to strengthen the shadow of the fire in the Dantian. It was a long time before he slowly opened his eyes. A touch of more intense than yesterday's golden on, suddenly from his eyes flash away. And his face, after this training, the color of the dishes disappeared, the whole person also looked slightly stronger. In particular, the momentum of the body, from yesterday's delicate hesitation, became sharp, like a sword about to come out. The aura of the earth is too poor. At this speed, I'm afraid it will take a week to break through the 2nd level of the cave. After Tian perceives the changes of his body, he gently breathes out a mouthful of turbid gas and murmurs with some regret. Duty Tian just walked into the door. Along the door there was a knock. Big brother, I live next door. My mother heard that someone has just moved in. Let me send you some meat cakes. After Tian opened the door, a little girl with black and thin pigtails held a plate in one hand and knocked melon seeds in the other. Her black eyes dribbled around, and she couldn't clear the way. Thank you. Seeing this, Tian stares at the little girl and takes the plate with a smile. This little girl is the one sitting on the wall he saw in the tree this morning. Big brother, my mother said that this house seems to have been dead. And just when Tian took the plate, the black thin girl had already jumped into the yard. She was kowtowing melon seeds, and her eyes were dripping everywhere. Then she looked at Tian and said, "Do you sleep here at night and meet ghosts? Are you afraid of ghosts?" Tian chuckles and asks. Black thin girl looked back at Tian, took melon seeds in her mouth, nodded, shook her head, and said with a smile, "Of course I'm afraid of ghosts, but I'm more afraid of people. Ghosts scare people at most, but mother says that people will become ghosts only after they are killed. You tell me how terrible people are. Besides, ghosts shouldn't hit me like my mother did. I don't see ghosts here. And even if there is a ghost, he will hide from me." Tian smelled the speech, picked eyebrow to smile, stretched out his hand to rub the top of the black thin girl's head, put the meat cake on the plate in the room, then washed the plate clean, handed it to the black thin girl, said, "Thank your mother for me. When I have money, please have dinner." "Big brother, you have to be quick and have money. I have a lot to eat. I'm tired of eating melon seeds." Black thin girl nodded, and then one hand holding a plate, one hand holding melon seeds, skipping out of the courtyard. This little girl is a little interesting unexpectedly. On the earth, there are also spirits. Tian stares at the back of the black thin girl leaving, with a smile on her lips. Apart from monks and pure warriors, Fengsuan spiritual realm is full of all kinds of great demons and spirits. Demons are like human beings, and they are a family. But the essence and charm are different. Their birth is even more peculiar. They are either changed by a breeze, or by a ray of water. No matter the fragrance of books, or the rust of copper coins, or even the power of fragrance, they can be transformed into essence and charm by chance. Many of them are of great benefit to those who practice Taoism. For example, the pillow charm in Fengsuan spiritual realm is transformed by the world's dreams and used by many sects in Fengsuan spiritual realm to sharpen the inner mind of disciples. It is also an excellent assistant for Danshio. It can help Danshio cultivate the elixir, and it can even improve the quality of the elixir by adding a trace of the essence of the elixir. When he was in the square-inch spirit realm, Tian liked these strange little things and raised a lot of them. He was also very familiar with the breath of their spirits. From the moment when the thin black girl entered the courtyard, she realized that her body was full of charm. Moreover, if Tian's perception is correct, the breath of the black and thin girl is similar to that of the young man who was born in the treasury. The mother and the son are one. No matter how they separate, they will come back together. In the square-inch spiritual realm, some people who practice Taoism like to turn green mango into money, and then urge her mother to let the money fly back to her pocket. However, the breath of the black and thin girl is a little complicated, not as pure as those green ghosts in the square-inch spiritual realm. Is it hard to say that on this earth, there has been a history of the existence of monks, and even a remnant of the sect of monks, but the aura has declined, and everything is in the doldrums? Otherwise, how can there be such a small spirit wandering in the marketplace? Tian's eyes twinkle. He only feels that the world in front of him is a little more foggy, and he doesn't really see it. But Tian also knows that if everything is as he thinks, then as long as he continues to practice, he will surely be able to intersect with that world. Moreover, the nature of the charm of the green oyster is not evil, and there is no need to fear anything. After shaking his head, Tian closed the door and went back to the house to solve the meat cake. Then he sat down with his knees crossed, and turned his heart to heaven. He absorbed the spirit of heaven and earth, and strengthened the shadow of the fire. As long as this shadow, even if a little Mars turns into substance, it means that he has successfully broken through to the second floor of the cave. At that time, the world will be open again. As soon as the method of visualizing changes, the aura of the surrounding heaven and earth suddenly converges to the rented house where Tian lives, especially the light above the sky, which is invisible, trickling in. In this scene, if there is a monk who is proficient in looking at qi in the spirit realm, he will surely feel that under the operation of Sua Wangguan's idea, this dilapidated rented house is as dazzling as a temple in the hot sun. After a while of breathing, Jinwu sinks to the west, and Yu2 rises to the east. Tiankai slowly opens his eyes. His stomach can't help but grunt twice. He even can't help but miss the meat pie sent by the thin black girl. I didn't expect that one day, I would be worried about such trifles as food, clothing, housing, and transportation. When Tian got up, he couldn't help laughing at himself. His eyes were a little gloomy, and he looked up at the bright moon outside. If Ningyao came to the earth, perhaps, at the moment she is also worried about these. However, can Ningyao find a solution like herself? However, with her character and ability, and the fact that she has told her so many things about life on the earth, no matter where she goes, she will be able to survive. What's more, she may be staring at the bright moon now, wondering when she will see herself? Yaoer, wait for me. Thousands of mountains and rivers, far away sun and moon, we will meet again in the end. Tian slowly pinches his fingers tightly and says it silently in his heart. Then he goes to the bathroom and takes a bath. He cleans up the impurities that are forced out of his body after taking it. Then he picks up those peach amulets and goes back to the hospital to set up a stall. By the way, he talks about a bowl of powder. The last time I sold Ningxue a peach amulet for 5,000 yuan, after paying the rent and deposit, there were only 3,500 yuan left. It's not right to sit back and take precautions. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Tian appeared at the door of the hospital. He set up a stall and put on a mahogany amulet. After waiting for a while, no guests came, so he closed his eyes, adjusted his breath, and practiced in silence. Oh, you see, isn't that Tian? This guy even set up a stall at the gate of the hospital and sold amulets. It's so funny. Tut tut, the former rich and young are now reduced to stalls. What a good fortune. However, this guy is really not a good thing. He runs to the door of the hospital to sell amulets. Isn't it obvious that he cheated those patients of their money? Ching ching, it's lucky that he has given up on you now. Otherwise, if he is like this now, whether he can support himself or not is a matter of two opinions. If you follow him, it will be bad luck for 8 generations. Half an hour later, along the street not far away, suddenly came a burst of noise. These people are not Su Qing and some of the little sisters who come out to hang out in the dormitory, but who can they be? Wait for me. Su Qing listens to the noise of the little sisters around him, and then looks at Tian who was sitting beside the booth with eyes closed. His brows are wrinkled. After hesitation, he smiles awkwardly at the little sisters. Then he quickly walks to Tian's booth, stares at him and says, "How can you do this?" "What did I do?" Tianping raised his head and slowly opened his eyes, light way. Although he was just in Twina, all the movement around him was in his perception. The conversation between Su Qing and his little sister, word by word, entered his ears. "If you are like this, you are not ashamed, I am ashamed. I give you money, you don't want to come here to do this." Su Qing listens to Tian's words, a touch of shame and annoyance passes over his face, lowers his voice and says angrily, "Who are you to tell me about me?" Tian glanced at Su Qing, a disgust rising from the bottom of his heart. The woman, whose family was backward, cancelled her engagement. It's easy to add icing on the cake, but it's hard to send charcoal in the snow. Tian can understand that. However, now that she has completely broken away from her and has no relationship with her, she jumps out for no reason and tells her what she has done. She even feels that what she has done makes her feel ashamed. This kind of self-righteous, self-feeling is a bit too good. Su Qing heard this, to the mouth of the accusation, can't help a stagnation, and then Beiqi suddenly clenched his lower lip. Yes, today's Tian has nothing to do with her. What does it have to do with her? I don't steal, I don't rob, I don't cheat, I live on my own. It's none of your business. Please help yourself. Yi Tianxiang pressure in the heart of the evil feeling, cold road. Su Qing's eyes are fixed on Yi Tian. He bites his lower lip and pinches his fingers tightly. He just feels empty in his heart, but it's hard to block. Smelly boy, you are so daredevil. You only cheated yesterday, but today you dare to cheat again. But at this time, not far away, suddenly came the surprise of Lin Feng, with a ferocious cold laughter. "If I don't break your legs today, I'm not his mother's surname Lin." Ha ha. At the moment when this sound comes, Su Qing's pretty face, which was originally wrinkled together, suddenly stretches out and laughs at Yi Tian. That expression, as if to say, "You still say you are not cheating? No deception, how can others call you a liar, and how can they call you? Oh, isn't that Su Qing? What, you know this little liar?" At this time, Lin Feng with a group of people, strode over, after glancing at Su Qing, smilingly. "Mr. Lin." When Su Qing saw Lin Feng, his eyes immediately changed, and he looked more respectful. Lin Feng, the future successor of the Lin family, the largest family in the South China Sea. She really didn't expect that Yi Tian should get into trouble with such a prominent figure. But there is no doubt that it is 100 times more terrible to offend such a person than to offend Niu Su. At this moment, she felt as if she had seen the miserable end of Yi Tian. College students, not familiar with. Su Qing shakes his head and takes a step back, indicating that the next thing has nothing to do with him. He can't help but look at Yi Tian. He has some hope that when Yi Tian hears that he is not familiar with him, he looks lost in his eyes. But to Su Qing's surprise, Yi Tian just looks at all this calmly. There is no loss of her expectation in her eyes, nor any other color. It is as calm as water. After 200 years of cultivation and endless twists and turns, Yi Tian's heart now only has Ning Yao, who wants to protect himself even when the terrible catastrophe comes. As for Su Qing? Who is she? What's the right to let yourself lose for her? Smash it! Lin Fang laughed and waved his hand forward. Wow! In an instant, 5 or 6 bodyguards with big arms and round waists behind him, holding baseball bats in their hands, smashed into Yi Tian in his stall. Su Qing looks at all this coldly, as if she has seen Yi Tian's head broken and bleeding. In addition to compassion, she has some relief in her heart. How dare a down-and-down guy who was reduced to a liar talk to himself like that? Did he forget that he was a poor guy, or even worse, a useless man? Don't you think you're like flies? And at this time, Yi Tian looked at those guys who rushed over, slowly raised his head and shook his head. Immediately after that, when he stood on tiptoe, people would spring up from the ground. Lift your knees and kick. Low body, sweep legs. A series of actions, as clean as flowing water, with a natural and unrestrained to the extreme beauty. Bang! 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 With the dull sound, the group of bodyguards with baseball bats in their hands had fallen to the ground, or held their legs, or covered their chest, without showing any fighting power in front of their owners. Su Qing stared at the scene, his eyes full of surprise and disbelief. When she was in the dormitory, she heard that Yi Tian beat Niu Su again, and beat away the bodyguard that Niu Su brought. But when she wants to come, even if Yi Tian can fight, how terrible it can be. But at this moment, she really realized how much Yi Tian could fight. Su Qing was surprised. As the culprit, Lin Fang was not only surprised, but panicked. His legs could not help shivering. His whole body looked like a swing, and his forehead was in a cold sweat. I sell things at a clear price. I never cheat. Yi Tian step by step came to the front of Lin Fang, light way. My father is Lin Tianxiong, and I'm the successor of the Lin family. If you dare, the Lin family won't let you go. If you are wise, you'd better kneel down and make amends for me now. Lin Fang looks at Yi Tian's eyes in horror. After his eyes change, he raises his chin and threatens. Yi Tian, you'd better take it as soon as it's good. You can't provoke the Lin family. Su Qing smell speech, immediately looking at Yi Tian, low voice way. Did you hear her? Kneel down on the ground immediately and apologize to me. Slap yourself 50 times. I can consider letting you go. Su Qing's words, no doubt let the heart of Lin Fang instantly have confidence, eyes become more arrogant up, mocking looking at Yi Tian. How can we fight? How can we fight 5 or 6? In front of the Lin family, it's still bullshit. I really want to know who gave you the qualification to tell me what to do. Yi Tian frowned slightly, and some speechless glanced at Su Qing coldly. With a word of indifference, he heard that Su Qingxiao's cheek was covered with a layer of frost. After his eyes were angry, he turned to look at Lin Fang and said, in my eyes, the Lin family is bullshit. After 200 years of cultivation, in Dante's eyes, even the clan in Yuanying was like a local chicken, not to mention an ordinary family that could only dominate Nanhai City. Lin Fang's threat to Yi Tian is really a threat to the wrong person. Dong! A language falls, the leaf day raises a fist, suddenly toward front to hit, heavy hit to fall in the forest square chest. Poof! This fist, full of strength, fell on Lin Fang's chest. He immediately flew upside down like a broken kite, fell heavily across the road, knocked on the curb, and coughed up blood. Yi Tian, you dare to beat Lin Fang and provoke the Lin family. You are finished. Su Qing looks at Lin Fang, who has vomited blood. After a long time, he looks at Yi Tian in fear and trembles. What is it to do with you? Yi Tian looks at Su Qing and smiles coldly. In the past, he only felt that Su Qing and the Su family were cold and heartless, but now that he has lived again, he finds that Su Qing is not only cold and heartless, but also hypocritical and cowardly to the extreme. Mingming has nothing to do with himself, but because he came out to set up a stall, he felt that he had lost her face and yelled at himself. This is not hypocrisy, what is it? Just because Lin Fang is a member of the Lin family, regardless of right and wrong, he makes himself apologize and even sneers. This is not cowardice. What is it? Yes, I'm glad your business has nothing to do with me now. Su Qing opened his mouth, his cheek suddenly became twisted, and growled ferociously. Yi Tian just smiles indifferently. With a stranger, completely irrelevant people, why angry? From then on, but the end of gratitude, the sun, winter snow, no longer related to life and death. What are you doing? But just then, along the door of the hospital, suddenly came a beautiful voice, followed by a girl in a light green dress, delicate as pink carving and jade carving, with a pair of sword eyebrows. This girl is not Ning Shui who bought the peach amulet from Yi Tian last time, and who can it be? Master, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that Lin Fang would come to you. If I had known that, I would have stopped him. You can rest assured that this time, I will do everything I can to bear it. After Ning Shui arrives, she takes a look at Lin Fang and the bodyguards lying on the ground. She immediately understands the whole story, apologizes and respectfully thanks Yi Tian. Su Qing looks at Ning Shui, can't help but be a while absent-minded. She, who has always been very confident in her appearance, feels pale in front of Ning Shui. And she couldn't believe that Yi Tian could know such a beautiful girl? Shouldn't this poor guy be despised everywhere? What I do by myself, I don't need others to help me take on anything. Yi Tian waved his hand casually and said faintly, "Is your grandfather okay? After your grandfather is cured, there should be a crack in the amulet, and there will be another chance to use it. After the second crack, the amulet will have no effect." "Thank you, master." When Ning Shui heard that Yi Tian even knew that the amulet was broken, she immediately became more and more convinced that her grandfather could wake up because of the peach amulet that Yi Tian sold. She immediately bowed 90 degrees and said respectfully, "Master?" This girl who is more beautiful than herself is called Master Yi Tian. Su Qing listened to the dialogue, but he couldn't help losing his mind. She is not a fool, can see, rather snow to Yi Tian's that respect, is from the bottom of my heart, absolutely no bit of hypocrisy. But she doesn't understand, how did Yi Tian become a master? How can he be a master? Master, do you want to sell the rest of these peach amulets? In Su Qing's dismay, Ning Shui sees the peach amulets on the stall in front of Yi Tian's body. Her eyes immediately brighten and she looks at Yi Tian and asks, 30. I can sell you another one. Yi Tian nodded, pondered, and said slowly, 30 in case. Su Qing's chin has almost fallen to the ground. How dare Yi Tian sell at such a price? Is this guy crazy about money? But the next second, let Su Qing feel more crazy things happened. After hearing Yi Tian's offer, Ning Shui didn't feel that Yi Tian was expensive at all. Instead, she frowned and said, "Why can't you sell me one more? A peach amulet can wake a vegetative person up, and it can also eliminate disasters twice." Such a baby, no matter who, naturally feel that more is better. As for the price rise of Yi Tian, she was not surprised. Before Yi Tian sold 10,000 pieces, it was because the buyer didn't know the goods. Now he knows the goods himself, so it can't be the original price. What's more, the peach amulet, which can revive the vegetative, is not worth 300,000. It's too much for you. Yi Tian light a smile, Wei. Every man is innocent, he is guilty. This is the law that Yi Tian summed up in the square-inch spirit field. It is not a good thing, but a disaster, that the better treasure falls into the hands of those who are not strong enough. Because people with poor strength may get it, but if they can't keep it, they may even bring disaster. If Ning Shui bought all the peach amulets, once he showed his feet, he would die. Good. I'll take you to get the money. Just now, my grandfather wants to see you. I wonder if he can help you. Ning Shui is smart and has understood Yi Tian's meaning. She nods and says respectfully, "Yes." Yi Tian's impression of Ning Shui is good, and since he has done a big business, he doesn't mind selling Ning Shui for a small face, so he smiles and nods. Seeing this, Ning Shui is very happy. Then she helps Yi Tian to clean up his stall and walks to the hospital with a respectful attitude. Yi Tian Ping is quite right. He seems to have been used to being treated like this. Su Qing stood in the same place, looking at Yi Tian who left with Ning Shui. Even at this moment, she still can't believe that Yi Tian sold 300,000 yuan for a mahogany amulet, and the people who bought it were happy, and didn't feel cheated at all. From beginning to end, Yi Tian didn't look at her. As if they were strangers. Ching, who was that girl just now? How did Yi Tian leave with her? How did Yi Tian know such a beautiful girl? It doesn't seem to be from our school. I haven't seen her before. At this time, Su Qing's little sisters also ran over and looked in the direction of Yi Tian and Ning Shui's departure. After that, they asked. I have something to do. Let's go first. Take your time. Su Qing looks embarrassed at those little sisters' smile, and then bowed his head and left in a hurry. Qing, what's the matter? We agreed to play together. Why did we suddenly leave? She can't see that the girl beside Yi Tian is more beautiful than her, isn't she comfortable? The little sisters looked at Su Qing's back, chirping and guessing. Meanwhile, Yi Tian and Ning Shui have entered the hospital. On the way, Ning Shui has transferred 300,000 yuan to Yi Tian's account. Let's go, let's all go. All of a sudden, a loud voice came from the door of the hospital, followed by a large group of doctors and nurses in white coats, pushing out more than 20 stretchers with sallow and pale children on them. Doctor, what's going on? Are the children going to be transferred? Ning Shui is kind-hearted in nature. Seeing this picture, she apologizes to Yi Tian and smiles. Then she hurried to several doctors in white coats, helping them push the stretcher and asking in a low voice. These children seem to have a lung infection and a bad cough, but all the antiviral drugs have been tried, and they are still not getting better. They must be sent to the provincial hospital as soon as possible to determine the cause and carry out the next treatment. The doctor with sweat on his forehead heard Ning Shui's words and said in a hurry. Cough cough. As if to verify the doctor's words, as soon as his voice fell, a child on the stretcher next to him turned over and coughed wildly. The movement was so violent that he seemed to cough up his heart, liver, and lung. Oh! And after a few coughs, the sick child opened his mouth and vomited, but the vomit was no longer food, but yellow-green bile and gastric juice. The appearance of this scene made the scene a moment of silence, and everyone's face was full of worry, which made a cold sweat for these children who were sinister in life and death. These children can't go anywhere, they must be treated as soon as possible, otherwise, they will die. But at this time, there was a clear voice, which broke the silence of death. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes fell on the place where the sound came from. Master, are you going to help these children? Seeing the sound coming from, Ning Shui's eyes couldn't help getting alight. Who are you? At the same time, the doctor also saw Yi Tian, suspicious way. This is Master Yi. He is very good. Maybe he can help the children. Rather snow-smell speech, hastily introduce a way to the doctor. Master? What master? Feng Shui master, a charlatan who swindles the patient's money? How did this kind of person get into the hospital? When several doctors and nurses heard Ning Shui's words, they shook their heads speechless and ignored Yi Tian directly. They said to the crowd, hurry up and send the children to the ambulance and the provincial capital. I said it. Don't touch the children, or they will die. But at this time, the Leaf Day flash body blocked in front of the stretcher car, a word a heavy voice way. Fart, what do you know as a charlatan? Get out of the way. Haha, the rubbish who makes money from unkindness, what face do you have to talk about here? You liar, get out of here and don't delay us real doctors to save people. See Yi Tian's action, all the doctors and nurses around show disdain and anger on their faces. They look at Yi Tian with disgust. That kind of vision is like looking at a mass of garbage. Listen to that, Yi Tian's eyes become colder and colder, but when he falls on the children who are struggling and groaning on the stretcher, he can't bear it. Although he is scorned and discriminated against, he can choose to stay out of the business and have a good time after biting his teeth. Yi Tian looked at the doctor's eyes and said in a deep voice, give me 3 minutes, and I'll give you a miracle. Doctor, this master is really good. He cured my grandfather. Ning Shui is also in a hurry to help Yi Tian speak and plead. Haha, 3 minutes give us a miracle? I think it's a joke for us. It's addictive to be a liar. Have you cheated yourself? Get out of the way, or we'll delay the children's treatment. We're not finished with you. Security, get him out of here. Yi Tian's words fell, and all the doctors around him immediately yelled angrily. Words fall, a group of security immediately fierce fast rushed to Yi Tian. Get out of here! Yi Tian sees this, his eyes are awe-inspiring, he reaches out his hand, and the security guard who comes in front of him falls to the ground like greasing the soles of his feet. He holds his knees and howls. But Yi Tian's steps did not stop. Like an angry lion, he rushed into the crowd and touched the security guards lightly. The security guards fell to the ground and cried for their parents. In just 2 minutes, all the security guards were put on the ground by Yi Tian. A group of doctors looked at Yi Tian in amazement and tremble, and were completely shocked by his powerful skill like a tiger descending the mountain. For a moment, the hospital hall was silent. Brush! Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Tian walks to the nearest sick child. Immediately after that, Yi Tian opens the sick child's coat and rubs his hands together. When the palm is hot, he quickly presses the upper, middle and lower triple energizers of the sick child. Press, rub, push, take, knead, pinch, tremble, cut, knock. Yi Tian's technique is fast to the extreme. His palms are like butterflies dancing among the flowers. Every movement is connected with flowing water. There is no gap between them. It's more wonderful than magic. This scene dazzled the people around. Time flies. 3 minutes later, Yi Tian turned and walked towards the next sick child. Tian Yuan 9 hands. Oh, my God. He used Tian Yuan Jiushou at this time. An old doctor with white beard and hair and a dignified face suddenly opened his mouth and screamed out with an incredible face. Tian Yuan Jiushou? What's that, Mr. Li? A group of doctors smell speech, turn head to look at Li Lao immediately, doubt asks away. Although he didn't know what it was obvious that Mr. Li was really good at it. Tian Yuan Jiushou is a lost massage skill in plain questions. God, I had a chance to see Tian Yuan Jiushou reappear in the world. Where did he learn it from? I want to be a teacher, I want to be an apprentice to him. Li is completely immersed in his own shock. After explaining one sentence casually, he looks at Yi Tian with excited worship on his face. Check the condition of the sick child. Looking at old Li's excited expression, the leading doctor could not say anything more. He shook his head and said to other doctors, "It's getting better." As soon as the doctors got to the stretcher, their faces changed. At the moment, the sick child in the stretcher bed was pale and yellow, and turned ruddy. Although he was still weak, his expression was no longer as painful as before. Director Nya, the patient's pulse returned to normal, his heartbeat became powerful, his breathing was stable, and there was no sign of vomiting. When the blood pressure and pulse were measured, several doctors looked at Yi Tian in astonishment, then turned their heads and shocked the leading doctor. Did it work? Really? It's a joke that a swindler can cure a disease we can't cure. How long is it? 3 minutes, that's good? A word fell, the scene suddenly like a frying pan, all the medical staff face show incredible color, shaking his head. Normal? Hearing this, Dean Nye's eyes suddenly changed. He quickly stepped forward and looked down. He immediately confirmed that the child's condition had greatly improved. Miracle, this is a miracle, he actually gave us a miracle. After a long time, Dean Nye slowly looked up, looking at Yi Tian, who was still busy in front of the other sick children, murmured confusedly. In 3 minutes, he cured the sick child who was helpless. If it was not a miracle, he did not know what was a miracle. Is this young man not a fake master, but a real master? Yi Tian, who is in the process of treatment, is absorbed. Although the outside world is noisy, he turns a deaf ear to it. He does not pay attention to the noise created by himself. The whole person gathers all his mind to treat the sick children one by one. In the blink of an eye, after half of the treatment, his handsome cheek was not half of the color of blood, and his forehead was covered with big beads of sweat, constantly dripping, looking extremely tired. Master, let me wipe your sweat. After seeing this, Ning Shui, who has been worshipping Yi Tian, blushes and takes out a tissue from his pocket and says, "Yes, thank you." Yi Tian nodded his thanks, but there was no pause in his hand. Although he has practiced Sui Wangwen's idea now, his physical condition is still poor. He just uses mana and carries out such a little shallow treatment, which makes him feel like he has lost his power. It seems that there is a long way to go to transform the body. Unexpectedly, the master is not only powerful, but also handsome. And looking at Yi Tian's side face like chopping, and his attentive action, it was Ning Shui of amorous age, and her mind couldn't help shaking slightly. The treatment is over. An hour later, Yi Tian breathed a long sigh of relief, turned his head and looked at Dean Ye, his voice trembled. Massage is a very mental and physical treatment, not only to recognize the point accurately, but also to choose the strength of each point is different. In addition, the original body's physique is too poor. If he didn't stick to the idea of human life as greater than heaven, his physical strength would not be enough to support him in treating these 20 sick children. On behalf of the hospital, I thank you. The hero is a teenager. I can't see it. You are the only one. Hearing this, Dean Ye hurried forward, holding Yi Tian's hand tightly and shaking it with a smile on his face, sighed, "A young man has such brilliant medical skills. Just now, I don't believe you. It's just a matter of life. I really don't dare to mess with you. Please don't mind. Dozens of children have been saved." At this moment, he is really excited to the extreme, but if not, he would not have said "you are a liar" in front of Yi Tian. No, I don't see anyone's face. I just can't see children suffer. The leaf sky cloud is light breeze light of hand from Nye premier palm draw out, light way. Danshou's benevolence was the foundation of his life in the square-inch spiritual realm. In those years, although he experienced a lot of blood, and his hands were stained with a lot of lives, what he can be sure is that there were absolutely no innocent people who died in his hands. Moreover, the people he saved were countless times more than those he killed, especially those at the bottom of the square-inch spiritual realm. They were very grateful to him, and there were countless ancestral temples and memorial tablets of longevity. "Master, what's the matter with these children?" Nye Dean feeling finished, and then suspicious looking at Yi Tianshu and asked. The situation of the sick children is very strange. They have never seen it before. It's obviously a pulmonary infection, but the antiviral drugs have no effect. It's really strange. Almost all of them suspect that it's an infectious disease. They should have been poisoned by some strange plants with toxicity. Yi Tian's eyes twinkle slightly and slowly. From the moment he saw the children's symptoms, he, who used to be Emperor Dan in Fangsuan Lingyu, had already seen that these children were poisoned by Tian Xinko. Tianqin herb is a kind of herb for refining Peiyuan pill. The essence of this herb is excellent. The refined Peiyuan pill can help the practitioners to improve their accomplishments and break the state. However, Tian Xinko has one characteristic, that is, in order to protect itself, its leaves, roots and flowers contain toxicity. If it is accidentally touched, the toxicity will enter the lungs. The symptoms of these children are obvious signs of Tian Xinko poisoning. The toxicity of Tian Xinko is very strong. If you are a strong adult, you can persist for a few days. But for children, if they have symptoms and don't deal with them in time, they will die in a few hours. However, Yi Tian did not expect that there was Tianqin grass on the earth. He plans to ask where these children have been recently. Yes, the kindergarten teachers did say before that they went to Zexiafeng for a picnic. Maybe they came into contact with poisonous weeds there. Hearing Yi Tian's words, several doctors immediately made a confirmation. Jia Xiufeng? Hearing this, Yi Tian silently wrote down the name. He planned to leave the hospital and go for a walk. Tianqin grass is poisonous, but for him, the Emperor of Dan, as long as he gets it, he can get rid of the toxicity and refine it into Peiyuan pill with a little treatment. Master, who did you learn Tian Yuan Jiushou from? At this time, Li Lao, who was amazed at Yi Tian's treatment methods before, also came over and looked at Yi Tian with adoration, as if she was seeing her idol. I read the medical books by myself. I'm so unpredictable. Yi Tian smiles faintly, but his eyes twinkle slightly. The treatment he just used was from the blessed land of Qingming. According to Li Lao, it seems to be Tian Yuan Jiushou recorded in Su Wen. The healing skill of Qingming blessed land is even the same as that of the earth, which makes people daydream. Self-taught, master really deserves to be a master. I've read medical books all my life, but I'm not as good as you. I'm really ashamed. It seems that the master's medical skill must be as high as the 9-story building of the hospital. Although Old Li is very old, he can flatter Yi Tian, but he is not red and breathless. He praises Yi Tian as rare in the sky. After he is rare on the ground, he ignores the embarrassed or helpless expressions of Dean Nye and the doctors around him. Like a little daughter-in-law, he looks at Yi Tian and says, "What, master, do you still accept apprentices? I'm a little old, but I'm absolutely respectful of my teacher. I have no plans to accept apprentices for the time being." Yi Tian looks at Li Lao and shakes his head with a smile. "That's my blessing. I don't have a chance to be in your eyes." When Li heard the speech, he could not hide his loss, just like a child who didn't get what he wanted. Tianyuan 9 hands, that is a long-lost method of massage and plain questions. With this method, patients who don't know what to do can benefit from it. That's why he had the cheek to flatter a young man. "But if you want to learn, I can teach you if you don't accept apprenticeship." But at this time, Yi Tian smiles at Li. "I know, master, you are as good as water, as righteous as heaven, and as a top immortal, you will not ignore my little request." Old Li's face was full of joy, and flattery was like a frenzy again. "Don't flatter me. I've heard that too much. I'll write to you with a pen and paper." Yi Tian shook his head with a bitter smile. But he didn't brag about this. When he was in Fengsuan spirit realm, he was the top friars of the clan. In order to ask him to make a pill, he flattered him and sent money, spirit animals, and nuns. He was already immune to this scene. Mr. Li's attitude is not enough. "Master Gaoi, naturally I can't hear such flattery." Li Lao's face was full of respect, and he gave a thumbs up to Yi Tian, then ran to find pen and paper. A few minutes later, Yi Tian finished the writing of Tianyuan's 9 hands and handed it to Mr. Li. "Thank you, master. However, I can't study in vain. If you have any requirements, please let me know. I don't have a lot of money, but I can give you some money." Li took the thin sheet of paper in his hands, took a look at it, and then confirmed that it was the real 9 hands of Tianyuan. He immediately looked at Yi Tian with a solemn and sincere look. "No money for saving people." Yi Tian casually waved his hand and said with a smile. He could see that Mr. Li was indeed a good doctor. Otherwise, he would not even care about his face in order to learn medical skills. Since the treatment of the disease, then naturally do not have to charge. A gentleman loves money and takes it in a proper way. Ning Shui hears the sound and stares at Yi Tian's side face with a trance look. Old Li didn't know, but she knew that since Yi Tian had been able to sell such a precious peach amulet before, and only sold 10,000 amulets, he must be short of money. But now, Yi Tian even teaches Li Laoi's unique medical skill free of charge, which makes people look up to him. "I will remember what the master taught me." Old Li's face suddenly became dignified, holding the thin piece of paper in his hands. Facing Yi Tian was a 90-degree deep bow. "Come on, meet your grandfather." Yi Tian smiles and shakes his head. He says faintly to Ning Shui that he doesn't have any reaction to the things that Lao Li thinks he is a disciple. "Master, this way, please." Rather snow this just like the beginning of a dream to wake up, flurried in front of lead the way, take the leaf day to the ward to walk. "What a master, you are so graceful." Li Lao looked at Yi Tian's back, standing in the same place, murmuring and admiring. Just, this time of flattery, he is really from the bottom of his heart. "Grandfather, this is the master I told you about." After entering the ward, Ning Shui introduces Ning Zhongshan. "Ning Hao and Xiao Hui can't bear the pain of vigil in the hospital." Before Ning Zhongshan woke up, their husband and wife were the nursing workers they asked to take care of here. "It's rare to come here." Now that Ning Zhongshan has come to his senses and is getting better, they quit the job as soon as possible, and no one is coming anymore. The name is to let Ning Zhongshan exercise more and recover faster. "Thank you for your help." Lying on the bed of Ning Zhongshan smell speech, quickly in the help of Ning Shui get up, toward Yi Tian thanks. "The person you want to thank is not me, but Ning Shui. If it wasn't for her kindness, doing something good and buying my amulet, you wouldn't have such a fate." Yi Tian received the gift of Ning Zhongshan, and then said faintly, "It's the master who can help me to save my grandfather." Ning Shui waved her hand in a hurry, and her cheek was slightly red. I don't know, master, who are you from Xianshan sect? After listening to Yi Tian's words, Ning Zhongshan became more respectful. After a curious inquiry, he quickly waved his hand and said, "It's a bit presumptuous of me to ask. I know that you mountain people have many taboos, master. If it's not convenient for you to answer, it's okay." Mountain people? When Yi Tian heard these three words, his eyes could not help but move slightly. Then he looked at Ning Zhongshan and said with a smile, "Have you ever seen someone like me before? To tell you the truth, I was a busy person when I was young. I always liked to run around the river. Once, when I was in Longhu Mountain, I saw an expert in Daopao who didn't do anything to protect himself. He was close to the cliff, and when he pressed his hand, he jumped 2 or 3 meters, only a few ups and downs, and then climbed to the top of the cliff. I still think it's mysterious when I think about it." Ning Zhongshan nodded with a smile, and his eyes were full of fascination. After recalling a little, he continued, "Later, I met several boxers in Sangzhou. They said that there are many experts like that Taoist, who call themselves mountain people. These mountain people rarely enter the world and concentrate on cultivation, and even if they enter the world, they will not easily expose their identity. There are still people who practice Taoism, and they call themselves mountain people." Yi Tian's expression does not change, but ripples rise in his heart. In the past, he only thought that these things were impossible. But with 200 years of cultivation in Fangsu and Lingyu, plus the fact that Lao Daoli broke Tian Yuan's 9 hands, he now believes that Ning Zhongshan is not lying. It's just that the cultivation of the mountain people mentioned by Ning Zhongshan is not too high compared with the people in the square-inch spiritual realm. Now he can do the same thing. According to the realm of Fangsu and spirit realm, it is the appearance of the cave realm. However, the name mountain people has some meaning. One mountain and one person, stacked together, is not the word immortal? Mountain people, does it not mean that the high immortal? In addition, he can't help but think of the word on the mountain in Yan Bing's diary, which makes him curious. Is it a coincidence, or is it the connection between Ice Devil and mountain people? There's nothing I can't say about my origin. After pondering a little, Yi Tian chuckled and said, "I learned from Qingming. He has been practicing Taoism in Qingming blessed land for 200 years, and he is half a person in Qingming blessed land. Therefore, he decided to take this as his identity in the future. However, he is not sure whether there is Qingming sect on earth. But even if there is, so what? Dante Yi Tian said that he was a square-inch man, that is to give them face. If those people don't want to accept this face, just use their fists to reason." Qingming? Ning Zhongshan, who knows Yi Tian's thoughts, just thinks it's true and nods with reverence. After chatting a few words, Yi Tian politely proposed to leave. Although Ning Zhongshan is getting better, he is not healthy enough. He asks Ning Shui to send Yi Tian away. He warmly says that after he is well, he will hold a banquet at home to entertain Yi Tian. "Thank you, master." Fast to the door of the hospital, rather Snow looking at Yi Tian, and sincerely thanks. No, Yi Tian waved his hand at will. It's Ning Shui's own fate to think of good fortune and good fortune. It's not a thank you thing. "Master, was that girl your girlfriend before?" Ning Shui is silent for a while, this just like summoned up courage. The facial expression still has some nervous inquiry to ask away. No, Yi Tian shook his head. He and Su Qing are quite different. If not. When Ning Shui heard this, she immediately showed a smile on her face. After 2 murmurs, she responded and repeatedly waved her hand, "I don't mean that. I mean, master, your girlfriend must be better than her." But, the more said, Ning Shui's cheek is more ruddy, want to explain 2 sentences, can temporarily mind all confusion, carelessly did not pay attention to the foot, the center of gravity is not stable, the body to one side. Yi Tianxia's consciousness of a help, but this posture, how to see, but how like holding Ning Shui. This. When Xiang Nephrite in arms, Yi Tian for a moment some stunned, open mouth, do not know what to say. Ning Shui is also stunned, brain blank, face more embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." Lying about 10 seconds later, Ning Shui flurried out of Yi Tian's arms and stood firm. Her cheeks were hot with red clouds. She lowered her head and wished she could find a way to get in. Just after that, he got into Yi Tian's arms. It's really no, I know you didn't mean it. Go back and take care of Ning Lao. I'll go first. Yi Tian shakes his head at Ning Shui with a smile, and then leaves the hospital quickly. Ning Shui stares at Yi Tian's back. Under her heroic eyebrows, in her Danfeng eyes, she is as shy as water and confused as clouds. Only the heart is about to jump out of the throat. This is a bit too much. At the same time, Yi Tian, who came out of the hospital, felt towards his chest with a strange look. How could my heart beat so fast, and my breath was a little bit wrong? According to my way of life and experience, I should not have any fluctuation in such a thing. Is it because of this body? Although my heart is mature, and I have a deep love for Yaoer, this body only carries my memory of the past 200 years, and the nervous system is still as usual. It's the sudden contact with a beautiful girl that makes me overexcited. It seems that there is a long way to go to transform the body. Yi Tian pondered a little. After finding out the reason, he stopped thinking and went to rent a house. Ning Shui's 300000 purchase of the second peach amulet has arrived. For the time being, he doesn't need to worry about money. He doesn't have to go out to set up a stall. He is also regarded as a liar. It's late at night now. The alleys are quiet. I have a few flowers, but it's quite quiet. Yi Tiangang leisurely walked a few steps, but when he stood at the door, his brow was wrinkled, and immediately stretched out, showing a smile. Don't hide, get out. Open the door, one step into Yi Tian toward the hospital cold sweep, cold voice. Good boy, I'm a bit of a Taoist. I can detect that I'm in the room. Go ahead, where did you hide it? A language falls, along the eaves of the shadow, immediately slowly out of a strong man, eyes not good looking at Yi Tian Dao. This person is not the strong man who came to rent a house during the day. Who can he be? Looking for something? Yi Tian frowned slightly and said faintly, what are you looking for? Don't pretend to be a fool with me. Since you dare to live here, isn't it for Qin Xuanming's hidden things in this yard? The strong man gave a cold smile and said, wise man, take things out early, otherwise, believe it or not, I'll let you die. Unfortunately, he is not the one who murdered his parents. When Yi Tian heard this, he was disappointed. The next second, his eyes were cold. The killing of the great friar Ing Yupujing suddenly broke out. He locked the strong man and said coldly, let me die? Are you sure I didn't let you die? No shame. Let's eat my paw first. With a ferocious smile, the strong man's body moves and blows out his claws at Yi Tian. That speed and strength, compared with Niu Su and Lin Fang's bodyguards, more than 10 times stronger. And look at the strength, the mark on the previous break is obviously left by the strong man. Mountain people. Yi Tian feels the fierce fighting style, and his eyes are slightly awe-inspiring. I have some vision. Since I know I'm from the mountain, I'm not going to kneel down. When the strong man heard this, Sen gave a cold smile, and his claws fell toward Yi Tian's chest. How about the people on the mountain, and how about the people at the foot of the mountain? In my eyes, they are all mole ants. Yi Tian smiles indifferently and gently puts out a hand, which is exactly on the wrist of the strong man's claw. It's a shot of great precision. Bang! Before the strong man reacts, Yi Tian's body moves, and a force that the other party can't match suddenly breaks out. He throws the strong man into the air, and then falls heavily on the steps. If it were not for the strong man who was from the mountain, he would have broken his bones and turned his 5 Zhang organs upside down to death. Dong! The next second, Yi Tian stepped on the strong man's chest, just like a god in the dust. He looked at him with disdain and said coldly, you're the so-called mountain people's strength, it's just like that. The strong man was in agony when he was thrown, but he was more afraid than the pain in his body. Looking at Yi Tian's face was like looking at ghosts. He thought to himself that he was not an ordinary person, but in front of Yi Tian, he was not an enemy. Say, what are you looking for here? Yi Tian's strength slowly increased under his feet, and he cheered coldly. You don't know? The strong man looks at Yi Tian in amazement, and his face is full of doubts. He felt that Yi Tian's words didn't seem to be false. But if it's not what I think, how dare this man live in a vicious house? I ask you to answer, so much nonsense, do you want to die? Yi Tianjiu moves and falls on the strong man's elixir field. His strength slowly increases and he cools down. I said that I came here to look for the treasure that Qin Xianming stole from the Zongmen. The strong man felt the pain coming from Dan Tian. His eyes widened and he was frightened. For the people on the mountain, the destruction of the elixir field and the abandonment of cultivation are more painful than death. Which clan? What baby? Yi Tian continued. Qin Xianming and I are both disciples of the Eagle Claw sect. As for the treasure, it was obtained by the sect leader when he went out on a tour and was stolen by Qin Xianming while he was on duty in the warehouse. I'm ordered by the sect leader to look for the baby. I don't know what the baby is, but the sect leader seems to value it very much. The strong man was afraid. Still lying? Yi Tian smiles indifferently, and his strength increases again. Elder, I really don't know what it is. The Lord only asked me to search Qin Xianming, but didn't say what it is. Besides, I killed Qin Xianming, and he didn't say where he put the stolen things. I thought he had an accomplice. I watched him here. Seeing you come in, I thought you were his accomplice. I really didn't lie. The strong man let out a scream and said in pain. This guy, he's not lying. Yi Tian looks at the strong man's appearance, and his eyes move to make sure that he is not lying. But he also saw that the strong man said it was false to help their sect leader search for Qin Xianming. I'm afraid it's true that he wanted to steal Qin Xianming's treasure from the Eagle Claw Gate. What's the strength of Eagle Claw Gate? A little later, Yi Tian continued to ask questions about the realm of cultivation on earth from Zhuang Hankao. Master, you don't even know the strength of Eagle Claw Gate? The strong man was stunned and couldn't believe it. With Yi Tian's skill, there is no doubt that he is from the mountain. But since he is from the mountain, he has never heard of the Eagle Claw Gate. You know, although the Eagle Claw Gate is not the strongest among the many sects on the mountain, it is not a nameless place of origin. Yi Tian said nothing and continued to increase his strength. There is now a mountain man in the early days of the heaven level in Yingsheimen. There are 15 people in each region of the prefecture level and 50 people in each region of the Xian level. The yellow level like me has the largest number, probably more than 200 people. Strongman Yi Pain hurriedly told the inside story of the Eagle Claw door to Yi Tian. Yellow level, Xian level, prefecture level, heaven level. This kind of realm division is similar to the pure Wufu of Fengtsuan spirit realm. However, in the square-inch spiritual realm, these four realms belong to the clay world of pure Wufu. I just don't know if these mountain people on the earth have the same name as pure Wufu's mud environment, and whether they have the same strength. Let me ask you again, apart from the Eagle Claw Gate, what other mountain sect? What is the highest state of cultivation today? Yi Tian is also lazy to find out these reasons. After his eyes change, he continues to ask. This elder, why do you even have to ask? The strong man's heart was full of doubts. He could see that Yi Tian had to work hard at his feet and said in a hurry, there are 3 sect and 6 sect on the mountain. They are Tianqin sect, Shuiwa sect, Qingming sect, Tiangang sect, Disha sect, Shuiying sect, Duanshuan sect, Shenkong sect and Tai sect. Today, the most powerful cultivator on the mountain is recognized as Lu Bufan of Qingmingzone, the highest cultivator of heaven level. Qingmingzone. Yi Tian's expression changed slightly when he heard these 2 words. He was not sure whether the Qingming sect had any connection with the Qingming blessed land in Fengtsuan spiritual realm. At that time, he told Ning Zhongshan that he was still laughing after learning from Qingming. He wondered if there would be Qingming sect on the mountain. Now, it's a prophecy. But among the people on the mountain, the one with the strongest cultivation is just the peak of heaven level, which makes Yi Tian a little surprised. If the realm of mountain people is really divided according to the 4 realms of clay, then the pure Wufu on earth is too weak. Master, I have told you what I know. Please spare my life. With these words, the strong man prayed to Yi Tian for mercy. At this moment, he didn't care about the strange question asked by Yi Tian. He just wanted to save his life. Go away. Hearing this, Yi Tian smiles indifferently. His strength suddenly increases. When he breaks through the strong man's elixir, he kicks him out of the gate. You abandoned my elixir field. The strong man covers the elixir's field and finds that the hard-working Chi is disappearing. Then he looks at Tian ferociously, and says sadly, "What are mountain people?" It's the people on the mountain who build up the Chi machine of the elixir field. On the mountain, they overlook all living beings. But now, when Tian was abandoned, he would roll down from the mountain and become a member who was looked down upon. Go away. Tianling drinks. As far as he is concerned, this has been lenient. If he didn't want to bring unnecessary lawsuits to himself, and was not good at handling the corpse, according to his habits in Fengsu and Lingyu, his words before the strong man would have killed him 100 times. The strong man looked at Tian's cold eyes, covered the Dantian, looked at him with a ferocious look, then turned and disappeared in the night. He felt that if he continued to stay, the young man might really kill himself. Tian looks calm and closes the gate with his backhand, as if nothing happened just now. He knew that his contact with mountain people had just begun. But that's exactly what he meant. How can we find Ning Yao as soon as possible without contact with the mountain people and with his current situation and resources? Treasures hidden by Qin Xianming? Immediately after, Tian sweeps a glance at the courtyard and house under the cover of night, and he is curious. However, before moving in, he had checked and found nothing. But he has a hunch that the treasure Qin Xianming stole from the Eagle Claw Gate should still be in the house. As long as he breaks through the second floor of the cave and gives birth to a spirit, he can explore and scan. At that time, no matter where Qin Xianming hides his things, there will be no escape. Doo-doo-doo-doo. But just as Tian was about to enter the house, along the quiet door, there was a knock on the door. Why did someone come again? Tian hears the sound and frowns slightly. When he opens the door, he can't help smiling. I saw standing at the door, not the black thin girl, who can be? I think it's the fight between myself and the strong man who just startled the mother and daughter. That's why I came here. Big brother, I just asked my mother if the house would be haunted at night. She said I'll come and have a look. Don't you get angry when I come here like this? Even at this moment is big night, but black thin little girl or keep eating melon seeds, sighed, and Tian say hello, sighed I son toward the yard random piao. I didn't tell you that with me here, all evils will not invade. No matter people or ghosts, they are afraid of me. Tian rubbed the head of black thin little girl and said with a smile. But in his heart, he thought that as soon as the strong man's front foot left, the young man's back foot came. Could it be that what Qin Xianming buried in the house had something to do with the young man's charm? But this black thin little girl although come to strange, but there is no malice on the body, leaf day also not good hand to press to ask. Big brother, you are so brave. You are not afraid of anything. Black thin little girl is very insincere. Chong Tian gave a thumbs up, and then said with a smile, since I won't be haunted, I'll go home and tell my mother, so that she doesn't have to be afraid in the future. Tian nodded with a smile, and then watched the little black girl leave. Big brother, if you are afraid of ghosts, you can live in another place. Black thin little girl hopped halfway, suddenly turned around, looking at Tian, laughing. It's good here. I don't want to move. Go back and tell your mother that I have money now. I'll treat you to dinner when she has time. Tian's eyes flashed slightly and said with a smile. Good. I like delicious food best. Black thin little girl with a smile, and then while knocking melon seeds, while humming unknown ditty, skipping disappeared in the night. It's a little interesting that this little green oyster is charming. Tian touched his chin and looked in the direction of the black little girl's departure. He was vaguely looking forward to seeing the mother of the black little girl. He didn't know what she looked like. A moment later, Tian closed the door and went back to his room. He continued to practice. At the same time, far away from the rental housing in the street, the strong man wandered for a moment, his facial features suddenly became distorted. For example, he finally made a decision, felt out his mobile phone and pressed a number. Master, I have found the whereabouts of Qin Xianming in Nanhai. But the guy is dead. What he stole from the door owner seems to have fallen into the hands of a young man. Would you like to come? After the phone was connected, the strong man lowered his voice and said slowly, "Well, I'll wait for you here." Waiting for the phone to give a positive answer, the strong man's face immediately showed a ferocious smile. His eyes twinkled, as if he had seen the tragic picture of Yi Tian's head in the hospital. "Boy, if you dare to abolish my cultivation, I will let you die without a burial place. I'm not your opponent, but I don't believe that vicious old devil can't deal with you." One night without words, soon to the next morning. The sky just appeared a touch of fish belly white. Yi Tian went out of the yard, stopped a taxi and rushed to Zexiafeng. When he came back last night, he checked the schedule. There was no class today. He just went to Zexiafeng to find the Tianqin herb that poisoned the children last night. After getting rid of the poison, he turned on the stove to refine some Peiyuan pills. He knew that after the strong man left, he would not give up and would definitely contact his senior teachers to seek revenge. Although he was not afraid of those curfew, it would be a good thing if he could break through his cultivation to the second floor of the cave before those people arrived. More than an hour later, Yi Tian arrived at the foot of Zhishiu Peak. After getting off the bus, Yi Tian inquired about the place where the children had a picnic yesterday, and then followed their footsteps. Although the mountain road is rugged, it is like a flat ground for Yi Tian. Only half an hour later, Yi Tian arrived at the place where the children had a picnic. Just arrived, Yi Tian immediately felt some subtle aura fluctuations. When he was in Fangsuan spirit realm, he was the Emperor of Dan. He could not be more familiar with picking miraculous drugs. Even if he had already given birth to a weak intelligence, when someone came near, the miraculous drugs that would hide his body would be invisible to him, not to mention the Tiang Cinco, which was only the lowest level of miraculous drugs. Just a few bulking, Yi Tian found 5 Tianqin grasses in the grass. Moreover, one of them was broken in half. It should have been done by the group of children yesterday. 5 Tianqin herbs, together with some other herbs, as long as they are successfully refined, are 5 Peiyuan pills, which are enough to upgrade your cultivation to the second level of the cave. Yi Tianxiang repressed the excitement in his heart, carefully dug up the roots of these Tianqin grasses, and then sealed the rhizomes with the soil. Tianqin grass is solitary and high in nature. As long as it leaves the place where it grows, it will wither and lose its medicinal properties. After digging Tianqin grass and making sure that there is no other elixir around, Yi Tian walked down the mountain contentedly. Just halfway up the mountain, he suddenly saw a red stiletto shoe on the rugged path down the mountain, and there were bursts of noise in the woods along the roadside. Yi Tian is not a little brother who doesn't know anything. He naturally knows that someone is doing happy things on the mountain. After shaking his head, he is ready to leave without disturbing other people's wild interest. Save. But before he stepped out, Yi Tian heard a short voice coming from the woods, followed by a clear slap, which was replaced by a low sob. Is it the legendary robbery? Yi Tian frowned and went to the woods. His movements, naturally, will not be noticed by those people. A few breathing efforts, then came to the sound. With a glance, he immediately saw a young girl in a dress with most of her neckline torn, revealing a vast expanse of jade white. She was pressed on the ground by 2 big men, struggling and sobbing desperately. How is she? When Yi Tian saw the girl on the ground, his brow turned into a knot in one's heart. This girl, not Su Cheng, can be who? It's just, how could she end up like this? Smelly girl, shut up. It's so damned unlucky to cry. If you dare to cry again, I'll scratch your face. The 2 men didn't notice anyone approaching. One of them pinched Su Cheng's neck, slapped Su Cheng's face heavily with a backhand slap, and immediately 5 red marks appeared. Tut tut, little Seigneur, you are so beautiful, and your chest is so big. I don't know how many men have slept with you. If you pretend to be pure in front of us and treat our brothers honestly and comfortably, we will send you down the mountain, otherwise, jia jia. Another big man bared his teeth and looked greedily at Su Cheng, grinning grimly. 2 brothers, I'm not the kind of woman you think. I haven't been in love yet. Please, let me go. As long as you let me go, I can give you money. Our family has a lot of money. We can give you as much as we want. Su Cheng's tears blurred and he begged desperately. Oh, pure and beautiful. Don't say it. I'm more interested in you after listening to you. On hearing Su Qing's words, the two men almost lost their saliva. The leader, holding Su Qing's neck, said to the other in a loud voice with red eyes, "Erzi, take off her skirt." Su Qing looked at this scene, eyes full of helplessness and despair. "You two, get out of here." Yi Tian's eyes are cold and strides forward, cheering coldly. Although his perception of Su Qing has been extremely poor, his perception of Su Qing is poor. In such a mess, if he doesn't care, he will be sorry for his conscience. "What are you yelling at? You want to die, don't you? But if you are honest and don't say a word, you can help us both keep the wind, and when we are finished, you can enjoy this girl." The sudden voice made the two men tremble, but when he turned his head and saw that Yi Tian was the only one, he immediately half threatened and half Lu Jie said with a strange smile. "You." At this time, Su Qing also saw Yi Tian, eyes cannot help a stagnation. "Since you don't want to go away, you want me to send you away." Yi Tian coldly a smile, swept those two big men one eye, indifference way. "Grass, do you mean to make trouble? I'll kill you." Hearing this, Erzi's eyes were cold. He grabbed a stone and rushed to hit Yi Tian's head. Yi Tian smiles coldly and looks at him like a fool. Wait until the second son to the body. Yi Tian raised a fist, then hit the second son's chest. Bang! When the stone fell to the ground, Zi's body flew upside down. After falling into the thorns nearby, he rolled down the mountain. In just a few seconds, his whole body was scratched with gravel and branches, which was a terrible sight. "Now, it's your turn." Yi Tian takes a glance, then goes to another big man and kicks his right foot. Pop! Accompanied by a crisp sound, the explosion of the explosion, should not have been kicked explosion. Ouch! My eggs! The big man covered his crotch with his hands. His nose and tears surged out. He jumped wildly for a few times. Then he looked at Yi Tian angrily and yelled, "Son of a bitch, I'll fight with you. Go away." Yi Tian smiles coldly and flies to the ground. Oh! The shrill scream was like crying. The big man was kicked up more than 2 meters high, and finally fell on the hillside. Like Erzi, he rolled down the mountain. In a few seconds, he became a bloody gourd. Put this on. Yi Tian looks at Su Qing when he is kicked away. He finds that her shoulders and most of her white greasy hair are exposed outside. After frowning, he takes off his shirt and throws it to Su Qing. Although he doesn't like Su Qing, he has to admit that the girl's figure is pretty. Su Qing grabs his shirt and puts it on him in a hurry, then looks at Yi Tian in horror. "If I were to do anything to you, I wouldn't take off my shirt." Yi Tian looks at her appearance and only feels funny. Su Qing was relieved. After being stunned, he stared at Yi Tian and said, "Have you been following me?" Last night, after seeing Yi Tian and Ning Shui leave, she was in a trance and lost her mind. She wandered around the city to relax her mind. This time, it was in the early morning. When she was sleepy, she took a taxi back to school. Unexpectedly, I fell asleep in the car, and when I woke up, I found that I was pulled to Zexiafeng by the taxi driver. What she didn't expect was that she would meet Yi Tian on Jishou Peak. Such coincidence can't help but let him doubt. Leaf Day is not always tracking her. Moreover, if it is not for Yi Tian's ruthlessness, coupled with his cold attitude, Su Qing almost suspects that Yi Tian intentionally invited the two guys to cooperate with him to play a hero to save beauty and try to win his heart. "I'm not that boring, and you're a little too confident in yourself." Yi Tian sneered and said, "If you can get up quickly. I have something else to do. I don't have time to wait for you." Saving people is the same thing, and perception is the same thing. Saving Su Qing doesn't mean that Yi Tian will change her outlook because of her pity for Jade. Su Qing listens to Yi Tian's cold words. His eyes turn red. He bites his lips and struggles to stand up. Then he limps behind Yi Tian. Although she is very unhappy with Yi Tian's words, after what happened just now, she really dare not stay alone. Hiss. When he got to the roadside, Su Qing put on the high-heeled shoe he was struggling with, hissed and breathed cold air, and a layer of sweat came out of his forehead. Yi Tian lowers his head and sweeps his eyes. He immediately sees that Su Qing's ankle is red and swollen. It is estimated that he twisted his joint when he was struggling with the two men. After frowning, Tian lowers his head and reaches for his hand to fall on Su Qing's ankle. "What are you doing?" Su Qing saw Tian's action and was startled. He was about to retreat. "Treat your feet." Tian gave a cold voice, one hand holding Su Qing's slender and white ankle, the other hand holding her shining jade feet, gently twisted. Click. With a slight crisp sound, Su Qing immediately felt that the burning pain along the ankle sprain had disappeared. And when she tried to move for a while, she found that her ankle, which was painfully painful with every step she had just taken, was extremely relaxed and painless at the moment. How can you cure this accident? Let Su Qing can't help but some surprise to see Tian, suspicious way. "Do you know me well?" Tian said coldly, "Since your feet are good, go down the mountain." After that, Tian turned around and took the lead to walk down the mountain. Su Qing stares at Tian's back, ashamed and angry, but more confused. She suddenly found that she didn't seem to know Tian at all. An hour later, the two finally appeared at the foot of the mountain. Tian took out his mobile phone and called a car. Then he said to Su Qing, "I won't go back to school. You can call a car yourself." Well. Su Qing was used to Tian's cold attitude. After nodding, he picked up his mobile phone and called home. After asking them to send a car to pick him up, he hesitated and said, "Tian, today's matter, can you?" When he spoke, Su Qing's face was hot. In the past, it was her who stood high in front of Tian. But now, it's her turn to lower her voice to Tian. "Can you not tell anyone, right?" Tianling interrupts Su Qing's words and looks at her mockingly. After shaking her head, she coldly says, "You really don't know me at all." Words fall, Tian called the car has arrived at the foot of the mountain, Tian opened the door, then straight away. Su Qing stares at the direction of Tian's departure. After a long time, she sits on the ground, but the expression on her face can't tell whether she is relieved, or confused, or disappointed. Everything in the past, now, after all, is gone. Even in the same industry, it is a stranger. 2 hours later. After leaving from Zexiafeng, Tian went to the supermarket and drugstore and returned to the rental house with big and small bags. He carried a pile of things, including ginseng, astragalus and other common herbs on earth to make up for the vitality, as well as 3 gas tanks, 2 gas stoves and 5 pressure cookers. If you don't know, I think Tian is going to open a simmer soup restaurant here. But in fact, these things are the materials Tian prepared for refining pills. Ginseng and astragalus are naturally the auxiliary materials for refining Peiyuan pill. Tian improved the prescription of Peiyuan pill according to Fengsuan Lingyu after learning that there is Tianxin herb in Zexiafeng. As for pressure cooker, gas stove, Tian prepared Dan stove and the fire of alchemy. If it's just because there's no furnace, it's impossible for him to start the furnace to make pills. Then he, the Emperor of Dan, is a failure. However, the pressure cooker is not as airtight or spiritual as the Dan stove he used in Fengsuan Lingyu. The flame, temperature, and quality of natural gas are not as good as the skyfire and earthfire he used in Fengsuan Lingyu. But all this, at least, is better than nothing. After the installation of gas stove and pressure cooker, Tian began to deal with Tianq Cinco. Tianq Cinco contains toxicity. If it is not removed, it is impossible to refine Peiyuandan. Heart read a move, Tian left hand clenched at Tianqin grass, along the palm, mana slowly toward Tianqin grass surging away. With the surging of mana, Tianqin grass trembles gently without wind. Along the leaves, a light green dew-like liquid slowly appears at the edge of the leaves. This dewdrop is the toxicity contained in Tianqin grass. However, Tian did not waste the venom, but dropped it into a porcelain bowl that had been prepared. This kind of purified Tianqin grass venom, if it is contaminated with a little, will quickly attack the human lungs. Even if it is a pure martial arts man, he has to be short of breath and can't lift his strength. He, formerly known as Emperor Dan and the Great Friar of Yupujing, naturally didn't like this kind of thing. But now he is Tian, and his cultivation is still weak. If he has this thing, he will be able to win in the face of a strong enemy. It's not a bad thing. After a long time, the toxicity of this plant was finally eliminated by Tian. After getting rid of the toxicity, Tian 5 changed from green to silver-white, emitting a faint aura. It is no longer like a herb, but more like an excellent handicraft. Whether you succeed or not, try it. With this in mind, Tian turns on the gas stove, preheat the pressure cooker, wait until the bottom of the cooker turns slightly red, and then quickly put in Tian 5. When the herb enters the pressure cooker, it immediately melts. Instead of turning into ashes, it turns into a light silver liquid. Moreover, along the pressure cooker, there is a slightly bitter fragrance. Seeing this scene, Tian immediately put ginseng, astragalus and other medicinal materials he had purchased into the pressure cooker, quickly covered the lid and paid close attention to the natural gas flame. Bang! 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 In an instant, the pressure cooker began to shake and tremble violently on the flame. This process, called quenching pill, is the necessary process to purify all the medicinal materials and turn them into pills. Boom! An hour later, along the room, suddenly came a violent explosion. Failed. Tian looks at the black pressure cooker inside after the lid is blown off, with a bitter smile on his face. If you let the people in Fangsu and Lingyu know that the most basic product of Peiyuan pill in the process of refining a piece of Dan Dao by Emperor Tangtang will fail, I don't know how many people will laugh. But on Tian's face, there was no sign of being discouraged. Before the furnace was opened for refining, he had expected that the risk of furnace explosion would be very high with this helpless improvement. However, absorbing Tian 5 alone can also improve cultivation, but even if you absorb all 5 Tian 5, the effect is less than 3/10 of that of a Peiyuan pill. Failure is not terrible. One success is enough to make up for all the losses this time. Again. The most important thing Danqiu needs is perseverance. With a slight pinch of his fingers and a wave of his hand, Tian cleans up the pieces of the pressure cooker and the dregs of the medicine, sits down on his knees, dispels the toxicity of Tianqing grass, and starts refining again. As he said, if you want to be a Danqiu, perseverance is indispensable. The higher the grade of pills, the higher the chance of failure in refining. If it's because of 1 or 2 failures, you will be disheartened. Such a person will never be able to reach the peak of pills in his life. Time is like running water, slowly passing away, from 3 strokes of the day, until the night is deep. One afternoon, along the yard of Tian, the roar sounded several times. If it wasn't for the neighbors here, they all belonged to the kind who didn't like to meddle in other people's business. In addition, Tian rented a vicious house that those people were afraid to avoid. I'm afraid that I don't know how many people would come to watch the fun. I can't even say that the police have already arrived. It's a success at last. Until the last furnace, the turbulence of the pressure cooker stopped slowly. Along the gap of the furnace cover, it sent out bursts of strong medicine fragrance, and Tian immediately showed a touch of essence. Without any hesitation, he quickly turned off the fire and opened the lid. Inside the pressure cooker, a crimson elixir is lying quietly at the bottom, giving off a strong medicinal fragrance, and the aura is even more full as if it were in essence. Dancheng is crimson, and the drug's power is 60%. Under such conditions, it's just a great success. Tian reaches out his hand and takes the Peiyuan pill out of the stove. He turns up a curve at the corner of his mouth. Pills not only have high and low grades, but also have the power and efficacy. The purer the power, the better the effect. The aura contained in Peiyuan pill with 60% medicinal power is about equal to 7 Peiyuan herbs. Of course, if Tian made Peiyuan pill in Fangsu and Lingyu, it would be 100% of the medicine power. Pills into the body, into the Dantian, change the power of 1,000 machines. Think you have used it. Tian recites the pithy formula in his heart, reaches out and throws it, then swallows the Peiyuan pill into his mouth. The pills melt at the entrance and turn into pure auras. They quickly and incomparably swim to Tian's whole body. Tian's hands are closed tightly, and he runs the idea of Sua Wangwen to guide Lingqi to swim among the 4 limbs. Along his forehead, beads of sweat the size of soybeans rustled down. And the sweat, more mixed with some blood-brown impurities, emitting a bad smell. The purpose of aura is to wash the body and remove impurities. After a long time, Tian led the aura into the elixir field and poured it into the empty shadow of the fire in the elixir field. When Lingqi meets the virtual shadow of Lingua, the flame soars. Although it only expands from the size of fingernail to the length of little finger, and it doesn't solidify much, it emits a fury that seems to be shaking up, burning through the ninth heaven and sweeping the sky and the earth. Brush. With the change of spirit fire and shadow, Tian closes his eyes and flies out of his mind. Even if the door is closed, the situation within 2 meters outside the door has all fallen into his eyes. All kinds of things, delicate finish now, even than the eyes directly see, but also a little more clear. It's the second floor of the cave. Tian took back his mind and felt as if he was full of strength. When he returned to this specific spirit, he felt a little weaker. He got up slowly, went to the bathroom, washed away the impurities from his body, and glanced in the mirror. I can't imagine that this idea of Sui Huang Temple is so fierce. It's a common way to break through the second level of the cave without any performance. But this idea of Sui Huang Temple can strengthen people's appearance, physique and temperament. Looking in the mirror, his face became thinner, a little bit as handsome as a knife and axe. His body was about 2 centimeters tall from the previous 1.75 meters, and his eyebrows were faintly dignified. Tian smiled and clenched his fist. Only by strength can we get real freedom. Next step. Immediately after that, Tian glanced at the house and murmured, I'd like to see what treasure Qin Xianming has hidden in the house. Only in this way can he end up dead. Brush. In an instant, Tian's ideas spread out and began to scan and explore area by area. The mind is different from the eye. It can enter the object, whether it is brick, stone, gold, iron, or the body. Under the light of the mind, it cannot hide any secret. Even if the cultivation is strong enough to reach the realm of Yuanying, a little mind can cover a planet, and all things can't escape. It's hidden here. Half an hour later, Tian's figure appeared in the yard, looking at the brick wall in front of him, with a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. After that, he pushed his hand forward and squeezed out a green brick of the wall. In the small space, there was a half-palm-sized piece of pale gold. This is the magic pieces. Tian takes the fragments in his hand and weighs them up and down. He is surprised in his eyes. The practitioners can not only cultivate themselves, but also refine the elixir. The elixir is divided into different grades, and the utensils are also divided into different grades. According to the division of the square-inch spiritual realm, the objects refined by the practitioners include heavy utensils, spirit soldiers, magic weapons, immortal utensils, and divine objects. The so-called heavy weapons are the magic weapons that cut iron like mud and blow hair. The spirit weapon is the bell of heaven and earth, which gives birth to the spirit weapon. The monks can control it and get twice the result with half the effort. Magic weapon, pregnant with the road rules of heaven and earth operation, the power is unparalleled, even if a piece of ocean can turn into a sea of fire. Immortal utensils are made from some extremely mysterious substances, which produce intelligence. Tian used to use a Dan stove, which is an immortal utensil, mustard seed, and shumi. A planet can be put into the stove, and the whole planet can be turned into fly ash when the fire turns 3 times. As for the gods, they are legendary objects. Even if Tian was in Fengsuan spirit realm, he only heard of them, but did not see them with his own eyes. The quality of this fragment is not bad. After playing with the pale gold fragment, Tian is more convinced that this is the fragment left after a magic weapon has been smashed. Moreover, if he is not wrong, it should still be the fragment of a magic weapon flying sword. When it is in good condition, it is of high quality and may even be close to the level of a semi-immortal soldier. On the earth, there are objects of this level. This discovery let Tian tongue repeatedly, but also understand why the Eagle Claw Sect Master will catch Qin Xianming. Although it's just a fragment, its sharpness and tenacity are extraordinary. In particular, the remaining fragments of the road rules, if there is a way to operate, can't be underestimated. Of course, if we can find all kinds of materials and repair them, it will be even more extraordinary. A half-immortal flying sword, not to mention the earth, can come and go even if it is placed in the square-inch spiritual realm. It's a good weapon. Tian carries the fragment, pours a little mana into it, and makes a slight stroke towards the brick. Seeing that the brick is broken into 2 pieces, he nods with satisfaction. Although the fragment is small, it can also enhance the combat power of the enemy. After putting away the flying sword fragment, Tian went back to his room and sat cross-legged, thinking and resting. The next day, when the sun was shining on the earth, Tian absorbed the aura of the rising sun. Then he got up and went to the bathroom to wash. There is PE class today. I need to go to school. After breakfast, Tian rushed to the playground, and all the students in the class had arrived. Yi, what's the matter with you? How do you feel that you have grown a little taller? Lying trough, seems to be thin, a little handsome feeling. Tian, Xiong hooked his shoulder, and then frowned, feel not right, staring at Yi Tian's eye carefully looked, full of doubt. Haven't I always been handsome? Maybe you haven't found handsome eyes before. Yi Tian picks an eyebrow to smile, stinky fart. You're fat, and you're panting. But I don't think you've really grown up. Xiong was speechless for a while. He scratched his head and was puzzled. It may be your illusion. Have you practiced the secret script I taught you yesterday? Yi Tian smiles and then digs off the topic. Of course. Xiong nodded vigorously, and then said happily, don't say, after practicing, I slept very well last night, and I got up very energetic this morning. Be persistent. Yi Tian chuckled. It's good for your health to practice physical training. You can eat well, sleep well, and have a good spirit. No problem. Xiong nodded hard, then suddenly changed his face and muttered, how did you have class with them today? Yi Tian's eyes swept, and immediately saw a group of people coming not far away. Su Qing was among them. College physical education, many of them are two classes together on the big class. Today, Yi Tian's class is together with Su Qing's class. There is no grass in the end of the world. Relax your heart. Don't be entangled by a woman, old man. Xiong looks at Yi Tian in a complicated way and pats him on the shoulder. She's her, I'm me, and I have nothing to do with her. Yi Tian Ping Jing responded. Xiong looks at Yi Tian in surprise. In the past, Yi Tian never forgot Su Qing. If he could have a class together, Yi Tian would be very happy. How could he suddenly become so indifferent today? Is it difficult for Su Qing to completely hurt Yi Tian? Thinking of this, Xiong can't help looking at Su Qing. His eyes pass by. He is surprised to find that Su Qing is staring at Yi Tian. You know, in the past, Yi Tian was staring at Su Qing, but Su Qing didn't feel it. Yi, Miss Su is in trouble today. How can she stare at you all the time? See the scene, Xiong hastily top leaf day, small voice way. It's her freedom to see who she likes. It's none of my business. Yi Tian light response, completely not to Su Qing there more half an eye. These two people, how strange, as if the reverse some of Xiong's monks are confused. Dudu and at this time, the PE teacher is blowing the whistle, let the two classes together. Continue to have basketball class today. Last class, I have taught you the skills of dribbling and shooting. Today, let's have a basketball match in different classes. Let's have a practical drill to see how you are learning. After the two classes gathered, the PE teacher looked at the class with a smile and said, basketball game. As soon as the PE teacher's words fell, the boys in both classes couldn't help but brighten their eyes. College students are full of energy, but also like to show off the age, which do not want to show their talents in basketball games, to attract the attention of girls. Boys compete first. There are 5 students in each class, which is related to the honor of the class. We should compete well. PE teachers are also from our age. They laugh and say, haha, class 3, you'll lose. When the PE teacher said something, Su Qing, the boy in his class, immediately looked at the boy in Yi Tian's class, frowned and laughed. A word to the ear, Yi Tian their class boy's face suddenly some ugly, more embarrassed. They are Chinese department, there are few boys, and most of them are bean sprouts with glasses. They are good at writing and writing. They are not good at basketball. As for Su Qing's class, it's class 4 of engineering department, majoring in science. Girls with 2 legs are hard to find, while boys with 3 legs are the best. Even a group of short men can make several generals. Not to mention, there are 3 team members in Engineering Class 4. Look, there are cows flying in the sky. The mouth of Engineering Class 4 is so powerful that even cows can blow. Shixiang, unconvinced, raised his hand to point to the sky. Counterattack. Haha, children, when you get to the court, don't cry, go home to find your mother. Hearing Shixiang's words, Fang Pang, the center of the school team of Engineering Class 4, who is nearly 2 meters tall, holds his hands in front of his chest and looks down at Shixiang with contempt. Shixiang's face sank and he wanted to fight back. Well, don't say a few words, quickly recommend people, and get ready to start the competition. The PE teacher saw this and waved his hand. When Shixiang heard the words, he turned angrily, looked at Yi Tian and said, Yi Tian, let's go up together and destroy the prestige of Class 4 of the project? Handsome cow SA. After a short period of silence, the scene was like a frying pan. The girls on the sideline screamed wildly and slapped them red. Even the PE teacher are staring at Yi Tian. According to his estimation, Yi Tiangong's takeoff height is estimated to be about 1.4 meters, which is the standard of NBA top players. I'll go. Sitting on the edge of the field, Shixiang looks at Yi Tian's back in amazement. He almost can't believe his eyes. If he had known this, he should have let Yi Tian. How could he? Su Qing also looked a little dull. Although she doesn't like basketball so much, Yi Tian's exaggerated takeoff and 3-point midfield still make her feel that her heart beat faster and her body is a little feverish. This kid, damn it. Fang Pang looked in the direction of Su Qing, and found that Su Qing was still looking at Yi Tianho. His 5 fingers clenched tightly, and a smear of malice flashed through his eyes. It's just a ball. It's a bird. Go on. Fang Ping roared and clapped his hands at his teammates, indicating to continue. Brush. At the same time, Engineering Class 4 serve, Xinfei did not hesitate to throw the ball far away from Fangping. When Yi Tian saw this, he curved his mouth and swayed his body slightly. Then he came to Fang Pang. He put his hand forward and grabbed the ball from Fang Pang. Such a big man can't even hold a ball. What else do you play? Give it back to the school team. The disgraceful team. Yi Tian patted the ball twice and looked at Fang Pang with a sneer. I don't like grass. Fang Pang didn't understand what was going on, so he found that the ball in his hand was missing. When he was stunned, he scolded, and then rushed towards Yi Tian. As a member of the school team, he is very confident in his skills. He felt that the reason why he was robbed should be that he was too angry, distracted and led to mistakes. You think I'm a fool to steal? Yi Tian a sneer, ice flash, learn to remember those NBA game picture, a series of dazzling fake action will do out. After breaking through the second floor of the cave, Yi Tian's physical quality has been greatly improved. Those NBA stars only have such skills through long-term training, while Yi Tian shows these incredible actions in the eyes of college students by virtue of his strong and incredible physical quality. Fang Peng opened his arms and pounced, not to mention snatching. He didn't even touch the ball. Because of his height, he is a bit clumsy. He is fooled by Yi Tian. Now he is even more clumsy. Ha, do you think Fang Peng looks like a bear who has been fooled around? What kind of bear? It's more like a headless fly to me. Is this guy really on the school team? People on the sidelines could not help laughing at the scene. Shixiang, in particular, grinned so much that he could hardly hear it. I fight with you. Listening to the voice of the court, Fang Peng was furious, gnashing his teeth, and went straight to Yi Tian. Yi Tian smiles indifferently, dribbles the ball sideways, dribbles a dribble, and then passes in front of Fang Peng. Moreover, this guy is dazzled by Yi Tian's dazzling action, which makes his weight unstable, trips his legs and falls to the ground with a bang. Ah, really a headless fly. I didn't see it. The technology is so ugly. Our school team is such a mess that even a fool can get in? The third class of Chinese students on the sidelines saw the picture and laughed with laughter. Even the students of Engineering Class 4, looking at this picture, are very angry and funny. Xinfei, stop him. Fang Peng was so angry that he hit the ground heavily. As he got up, he told Xinfei in a loud voice. At the same time, Yi Tian has taken off and seems to be shooting. Ha ha ha, if you wanna score again, there's no way. Seeing this, Shenfei raises his arms and jumps up to stop Tian. At the same time, after getting up from the ground, Fang Peng also rushed over and jumped up to cover. Two people standing side by side, just like two towering mountains, seem to completely block Tian's road ahead. Stop me, don't tease me. Tian seems to have expected this scene. His smile changes. Instead of changing, he holds the ball in his hands and greets Fang Peng and Shenfei. Dawn. In an instant, three people were heavily bumped together. Hiss. Looking at this scene, all the students in the field took a breath. Thought if Tian doesn't fly 5 or 6 meters away, his head will be broken and blood will flow. That's strange. Bang. But at this time, let everyone unexpected scene appeared. After the violent impact, it was not Tian they imagined, but Fang Peng and Shenfei, two big guys, who landed heavily on the ground and glided close to the ground for more than 2 meters. They hit the basketball stand and then stopped. Bang! At the same time, Tian held the ball in both hands and poured the basketball into the basket heavily. Bang! Basketball brushed through the net, and then like a shell general, hit the ground. After the spring up, it was a player of engineering class 4, straight down to the ground. In a flash, the playground was quiet, and everyone looked at Tian foolishly. I'm in the middle of. Damn, handsome. Sa. Tian, I love you so much. Come on, kill the 4th engineering class. More than 10 seconds later, the playground immediately turned into a sea of cheers. Everyone in Chinese class 3 jumped up, screaming, cheering and clapping their hands red. Some girls who were crazy about flowers were even more excited and showed their love without shyness. Even the 4th engineering class, in addition to a small number of people, looked gloomy, but the scream is one after another. And even those students with gloomy faces are shocked and worshipped in their eyes. Dunk! That's a slam dunk to the core. And it's the violent slam dunk after bumping two big guys. On the basketball court, is there anything more manly than this? No. Absolutely not. Such a person, even if he is an opponent, how can he not be shocked and admired? This guy. Su Cheng Zhang's looking at to stand inside of Tian, both hands hold tightly, the vision is long. She suddenly found that she really didn't know Tian. Just, why have you never seen such a picture on Tian before? And why, until he has become a stranger to him, he shows this side that he has never had before? Grass, come again. When Fang Peng and Shenfei got up from the ground, they listened to the cheers and their faces were very blue. They are the first players of the school team, but now, they are knocked down by Tian alone and smashed on their heads. How can they bear this anger? Soon, the game went on again. This time, Tian didn't play any more tricks and kept stealing with amazing speed. As long as you get the ball, whether it's in midfield or under your own basket, you will naturally throw it to the basket of engineering class 4. Brush. 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 And the ball to his hand, it is just like a Scud missile, precision guidance, no matter where he is, all 3 points into the box. Just 6 minutes later, the Chinese class 3, which was 20 points behind, miraculously surpassed the Chinese class 6 points. Fang Peng and Shenfei are so angry that they can't eat Tian in one mouthful with their panting hands on their knees. These two school team members are just like two idiots in front of Tian at the moment. Tian plays with them like an adult bullying a 3-year-old. You are too weak. Tian shakes the ball and smiles sincerely. Fang Peng and Shenfei clenched their teeth, and without thinking, they withdrew their defense directly. Their nerves were tense, and they were ready to take off and block before the ball entered the frame. They have lost their face. If they don't save their face, how can they still look up and see people in class 4 of the engineering team and work in the school team? Brush. Sure enough, Tian jumped up and threw the ball out immediately. Arc down, Fang Peng jumped up without thinking, to block. Bang! But at this time, an amazing scene appeared. Tian, who hit 100 times, missed for the first time. The ball fell heavily on Fang Peng's head. Fang Peng only felt his head roared, but he didn't understand what was going on. When it was dark, he fell to the ground and fainted completely. Damn it, why didn't it get in? Tian shrugged his shoulders and shook his head inside. What didn't get in? You just hit people with the ball on purpose. Xinfei called Fang Ping a few times. Seeing that he didn't respond, he pointed to Tian and swore a few words. Then he looked at the PE teacher next to him and said, "Teacher, he deliberately knocked people unconscious with the ball. This is a malicious foul. You have to decide for us." Tian's previous pitching, 100 hits, but this time, how can this? This is to help Xixiang revenge. The PE teacher looks at Tian doubtfully and thinks it's really strange. He also thinks that Tian should hit Fang Peng with the ball on purpose. However, Tian is in front of the pitch and Fang Peng is in the back. It can't be said that Tian didn't foresee it. Did he calculate Fang Peng's takeoff point before the pitch? What malicious foul! You can knock people over and jump from others, so Tian can't miss a ball? If you don't have the same skills as others, you should discredit others. What's your face made of? How can you be so thick? Return to the school team. I think it's the disgrace team of the whole school. Chinese class 3 students also gathered around, indignant looking at Fang Peng, loudly accused. Fang Peng listened to these sarcasm and accusations, but he could not refute them. He knew that Tian must have done it on purpose, but he couldn't hold any strong evidence. Tian, please explain this. PE teacher frowned and looked at Tian Dao. I can only say it's a coincidence. I don't play basketball very much. It's normal to make mistakes occasionally. I doubt that Fang Peng can afford to lose. When he saw me pitching, he jumped up and hit the ball on purpose. The Leaf Day shrugged his shoulder, full face helpless appearance, Wei. Xinfei's nose is almost crooked. What's Fang Peng hitting the ball with his head on purpose? Is Fang Peng a fool? Teacher, you must make sure that I do it on purpose. Well, I'll jump up. You ask Xinfei to throw the ball first, and then I'll jump up. If I can hit the ball, I'll be considered on purpose. If he can't, I'm sorry. It's an accident. Next, Tian smiles. Throw it away, can I be afraid of you? Xinfei is also confused at the moment. He grabs the basketball and smashes it against Tian. Seeing this, Tian jumps up and dodges the whistling basketball. Bang! Oh, the next second, along the edge of the field came a crash, followed by a scream. Xinfei, what the hell do I have against you? Do you want to hit me with the ball? A student of engineering class 4, who was hit by the ball in the middle of the field, suddenly had a long nosebleed, covered his nose and screamed. Xinfei is a fool. He just aimed at Tian, but unexpectedly, he didn't hit Tian. Instead, he hit his classmates. Teacher, you can see that as long as a normal person sees the ball coming, he will hide. Unless he has an abnormal head, he will take his head to hit the ball. Tian shrugged and looked at the PE teacher, smiling. Tian is right. It's a coincidence. The PE teacher nodded, then raised his hand to look at the time and said, Okay, this is the end of the game. I declare that class 3 of Chinese won. Teacher. Xinfei is unwilling to argue. Do you have any evidence? The PE teacher didn't wait for him to finish his speech. He replied coldly, and then said, Take Fang Peng to the clinic. Xinfei grits his teeth and stares at Tian. Then he reluctantly holds Fang Peng and walks towards the infirmary. We won. Tian, mighty. Chinese class 3 watched Xinfei leave the scene, immediately surrounded Tian and cheered loudly. Some little girls, even more red cheeks, eyes bright staring at Tian, face hard to hide the worship. In the competition just now, starting from Tian's appearance, the amazing long-distance three-point shot, coupled with the extremely violent slam dunk, made the engineering class 4 abuse their own skin. It's really morale-boosting. Those students in engineering class 3 are full of depression, and they are as dejected as the defeated cocks. The science class was defeated by a liberal arts class in sports, and there were 2 school team members in their class. How many faces does this guy have that he has never seen before? Su Qing looks at Tian, who is surrounded by Chinese class 3, just like the stars in the sky. His eyes are complex. I didn't expect you to be so fierce. If I knew it, I would have let you on. Thanks for the ball just given to Fangpeng. Shi Xiong bares his teeth and looks happy. He pats Yi Tian on the shoulder and laughs. He felt that the ball Yi Tian was deliberately avenging himself. I've learned what I've taught you, and it's easy. If someone bumps you again in the future, I promise, the one who flies out is the one who bumps you. Yi Tian smiles and says. Just that ball. He is really intentional. After many trials, he calculated Fangpeng's behavior habits and takeoff height, so deliberately designed that wonderful ball, to help Shi Xiong get back some justice. Shi Xiong nodded hard. He didn't believe the secret book that Yi Tian said before, but now, he really believed it. Well, there's no class today. I'll go back to my place first. You'll lie down and raise your legs next time. Yi Tian pats Shi Xiong on the shoulder and turns to walk towards the end of the playground. Yi Tian. Seeing this, Su Qing's eyes changed. He took a few steps forward and wanted to say a few words to Yi Tian. But beyond her expectation, hearing her voice, Yi Tian didn't even turn his head back, strode forward, and there was no hesitation at his feet. How could he? Everything is it hard to get rid of it. Su Qing looked at Yi Tian's back, pursed his mouth, his cheeks were red, and his 5 fingers were tightly clenched. At this time, Yi Tian has walked out of the playground and straight towards the school gate. Su Qing's voice, he did hear, but so what? Two people who have nothing to do with each other, why does she stop when she calls herself? At the beginning, when he called Su Qing like this, did Su Qing ever stay for him? Ding-ling-ling. But at this time, Yi Tian's mobile phone suddenly rings. The caller shows the word Yi phone. This man, how can you remember to call me? See these 2 words, Yi Tian's face instantly covered with a thick layer of frost color. Yi Feng is not a stranger, but his second uncle, his father's brother. Blood is thicker than water. After his parents died, Yi Feng should have been his closest person in the world. Needless to say, Yi Feng had nothing to do before, and he was able to live a splendid life today because Yi Tian's father sympathized with his younger brother and put him into the company, subcontracting several small projects. Through those projects, Yi Feng made a lot of money. His father, thinking about brotherhood, turned a blind eye and didn't care with him. But who would have thought that Shangmin, Do Micho, even his blood thicker than water relatives, were so cold-blooded after the crisis, even more hateful than strangers. After his parents left, all the property was seized and disappeared. Yi Tian once asked for help from Yi Feng, hoping that he could lend a helping hand and find out the real murderer of his parents. But who can think, Yi Feng turned his face and didn't recognize people. 2 words haven't finished, unexpectedly drove him out. That's all. Yi Feng drives him out of the house, and his Aunt Li Huizhi spills a basin of water on the floor at the door. She also says that Yi Tian wants to enter their door in the future, unless the spilled water can return to the basin. It can be said that Yi Tian suffered the heaviest blow since his parents left. Even if Yi Feng didn't ignore him, he wouldn't place his hopes on Su Qing and his family. Now, Yi Feng even calls him. How can Yi Tian not only be shocked, but also feel extremely angry? Something to say. Yi Tian stares at his mobile phone and presses the answer button. He wanted to hear what his cold-blooded second uncle was going to say. Oh, my God, why are you so angry? I'm your second uncle, and I'm not your enemy. As soon as the phone was connected, Yi Feng's voice came from there. His words were intimate, as if he were a relative whose blood was thicker than water. Be polite to the little boy, and ask him directly if the money in our family was caused by the little boy, and let the bank come and seal it up and take it away. At the same time, on the other side of the phone, Li Huizhi's unpleasant cold hum also rang, and her tone was a little flustered. The money Yi Feng took from his father's company before was sealed up by the bank? When Yi Tian heard Li Huizhi's words, he couldn't help but want to raise his head and laugh 3 times. This is the best news he has heard recently. But the next second, his expression is a lin. Yi Feng made money from his father's company in the beginning. He did it very secretly. Except for his family, there was no mistake in the book. Now, Yi Feng's money is gone, and he doesn't want to go, so who will dominate all this? Since it's not myself, who is it? The answer, obviously, is that the people who drove Yi Feng and his wife out of the house were those who murdered their parents. Is the fox's tail finally coming out? In Yi Tian's eyes, a touch of fine-on passed, 5 fingers slowly pinched tightly. Even though he had been practicing Taoism and Feng Shui and Lingyu for 300 years, the death of his parents and the fact that the culprit was at large were still the biggest pain in his heart. But at that time, although his accomplishments were magnificent, he did not have the means to return to the earth. But now, he is not only on the earth, but also no longer the ordinary Yi Tian in the past, but the great monk of Yupujing, Dante. Facing the murderer of his parents, he is not afraid, but full of expectation. He has been waiting too long for revenge. Yi Tian, do you hear me? Did you take the money or not? At this time, Yi Feng saw that Yi Tian didn't have any reaction, so he didn't bother to disguise anything. He tore the mask and asked aloud. What do you have to say? Where are you? Yi Tian hears this sound, just return to God, in different way. Son of a bitch, you are really a bad breed. Give us our money back. As soon as Li Huizhi heard Yi Tian's words, she immediately yelled at him. For the last time, where are you? If you don't want to say it, I'll hang up. Yi Tian's eyes flashed a touch of anger, cold way. The house has also been sealed up. We are at the gate of country community. Come here quickly, make it clear, and give us our money back. Li Huizhi's angry voice. When Yi Tian heard these 4 words, he didn't say a word. He hung up the phone, called a car, and went straight to country village. Before Yi Feng and Li Huizhi got married, Yi Feng begged Yi Tian's parents, saying that if they didn't get married without a house, they would live in the street with Li Huizhi. It was really hard for them to ask for the house, so they kindly invested in it. Before they bought the house, Yi Feng and Li Huizhi tried every means to please their parents. Their elder brother and sister-in-law were very friendly. After they bought the house, the 2 parents-in-law didn't even ask their family to come to dinner once, and they didn't feel grateful when they met. It seemed that everything was due to heaven and earth, or that Yi Tian's parents owed them. It was there that Li Huizhi spilled out the basin of water and said those ugly words to him. Since there are some debts to live for another life, we have to make a good calculation. We have to come back with profits and capital. Yi Tian closed his eyes to meditate and fell into memory. More than an hour later, the taxi arrived at country community. Before getting off, Yi Tian saw Yi Feng and Li Huizhi standing at the gate of the community. Both of them are disheartened, especially Li Huizhi. Her hair is messy, and her face seems to have been beaten by others. She was slapped in the face. You son of a bitch, give back our money and our house. As soon as Yi Tian gang got out of the car, Li Huizhi saw him, and her expression suddenly became ferocious. She rushed towards Yi Tian fiercely, and was about to pull his collar. If you don't speak well, shut up. Today's Yi Tian, work and eat her. This set, backhand slap, heavily left in Li Huizhi's face. She pulled a staggering, fell to the ground, sneered, and you seem to have made a mistake. It has never been your money, not your house, but my parents. You. Li Huizhi wipes her face and finds that her palm is wet. She spreads it out and sees that her palm is full of blood. She looks at Yi Tian like a monster and gnashes her teeth. She can't believe that Yi Tian dares to hit people now. Yi Tian, what do you mean? You've got to fight your elders. Besides, what do you mean it's your parents' money, your parents' house? They are willing to buy it for me, but I have never forced them. Yi Feng ran over, pointed to Yi Tian's nose, and said in a loud voice, please give me the money back to me as soon as possible. Click. Yi Tian's eyes flashed, raised his hand to hold Yi Feng's finger, and suddenly broke it up. With a crisp sound, the finger bone was abruptly broken into 2 by Yi Tian. Yi Feng holds his fingers as soft as noodles, his facial features are wrinkled, his forehead is dripping with cold sweat, and he screams. You are also a man who can't talk well. Yi Tian glances at Yi Feng indifferently, with a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. You. Yi Feng holds a broken finger in 2 and looks at Yi Tian with pain and surprise. His face is full of disbelief. In the past, Yi Tian was a bit shy. Even if he was angry, he was gloomy at most, but now, how did he become so cruel? He slapped Li Huizhi in the face and broke his finger. Who drove you out of the house? At this time, Yi Tian looked at Yi Feng and Li Huizhi in disgust and asked indifferently. Who else but you, little son of a bitch? As soon as Li Huizhi heard about the house, she forgot the pain and yelled angrily. Pop! Yi Tianzhen didn't want to talk to her. He raised his hand and slapped Li Huizhi in the face. This slap was more fierce than the one just slapped. When one slap fell, half of Li Huizhi's face immediately swelled like a steamed bun. 5 bloodstains were bright red, and even the back teeth were mixed with blood. 2 or 3 of them flew out. Since you can't speak well, I'll fight until you speak well. Yi Tian looks at Li Huizhi coldly and says indifferently. Li Huizhi's mouth is full of blood. She can't say a word. She just looks at Yi Tian's eyes. She has become extremely frightened. She does not understand, now Leaf Day, how become so terrible. Even, she felt that if she said anything again, Yi Tian might really kill herself. Who drove you out? Yi Tian sneers and turns to look at Yi Feng. It is quite difficult to start with the investigation of banks sealing up deposits. But this kind of driving people out of the house is basically done by some people who can't see the light. It's much less difficult to find the clues of the culprit from these people. The people who set up the company, they drove us out. If we don't move, they beat us out. Yi Feng at the moment were still dare to talk back with Yi Tian, the voice trembles away. Home company. Yi Tian's eyes flashed and remembered the name. Xiaotian, anyway, I'm your father's brother and your only relative in the world. Do you have the heart to see your second uncle homeless and take your second aunt to the streets? You can do well and return the house to us. Second uncle swears that he will treat you as my own son in the future. At this time, Yi Feng pretends to be miserable and looks at Yi Tian prayingly. My son? Yi Tian looks at Yi Feng and laughs. He has seen Yi Feng's pathetic appearance too many times. In those days, when he begged his father to buy him a house, it was not such a virtue. But after buying the house? Did he ever say a good word about his father? Now, when he wants to go back to his house, he even wants to be his own father? No, I'm wrong. Hearing this, Yi Feng quickly slapped himself with his backhand and said in a trembling voice, I will treat you as my father in the future. I will treat you well. Our family will live a good life. I swear, you can believe uncle once. Father? In your eyes, what is grandfather? Yi Feng, you are really rich, you are father, you are mother. Yi Tian looks at Yi Feng mockingly. How can there be such a shameless person in the world? For a little money, even the ancestors don't want it. Yi Tian, please forgive us. Tell me, what can we do so that you can forgive us? Li Huizhi also endured the pain and begged to Yi Tian repeatedly. Her nose was running and her tears were like juggling. She dropped all over the ground. I want to forgive you. It's very simple. Yi Tian glanced coldly at Yi Feng and Li Huizhi, then pointed to Li Huizhi's tears on the ground and said, as long as you can let these tears come back to your eyes, I will forgive you. Li Huizhi opened her mouth, but she couldn't say a word. Yi Tian said these words at the moment, isn't she once said when she drove Yi Tian out of the house before. However, how can the covering water be collected again, and how can the tears come back to the eyes? The white-eyed wolf. Yi Tian glances at Yi Feng and Li Huizhi coldly, turns around and walks away. After beating these 2 ungrateful white-eyed wolves, he felt fresh. As for their future life and death, whether they live in the street or in the open, what does it have to do with him? Home company. Turning around, Yi Tian's eyes flashed a fine light. Yi Feng and Li Huizhi have already taught a lesson, so the next thing is to go to the settling down company to find out who they are and ask them to drive Yi Feng and Li Huizhi away and take back the house. Half an hour later, Yi Tian appeared at the door of the shop with the 4 scarlet letter signs of Anjia Company. It's time to go to work at the moment, but at the door of the settling down company, there are a group of strong men in black suits. They are all wearing big gold chains. Their sleeves are rolled up high, revealing colorful tattoos. They are smoking cigarettes in their mouths. They look like they can't write the word grey power on their faces. To mediate conflicts, to deal with disputes, or to collect debts, to collect rent, to get a 20-point bonus, everything is easy to say. As long as we set up a company, we can ensure that everything is safe and sound. See, Tian is looking at the sign, lead a strong man to throw down the playing card in the hand, looking at him to pick Chin, Wei. I've come to inquire about one thing. Yi Tian Light Wei. Bah! Hearing this, the leader immediately showed a look of displeasure on his face, spat a mouthful of phlegm on the ground, and then returned to his original position, calling other strong men to continue playing cards. Who asked you to drive Yi Feng and his wife out of country community? Leaf Day brow wrinkled, forward one step, Light Wei. I don't know. I'm busy? Go away, leading strong man disdained to throw Leaf Day one eye, Cold Wei. Wow! As soon as Yi Tian's eyes changed, he strode forward and stretched out his hand, then he overturned the table. After the cards were spilled all over the floor, he said to the leader lightly, Now you're okay, can you answer my question? His grandmothers, you don't only understand people's words, but also can't handle personnel, can you? Come to our home company to look for trouble. Do you have itchy parts on your body? I want you to take care of them. Dare to lift our table, don't give you some color to see, you're afraid you don't know what our home company does? A language falls, leader strong man and other several strong men, Huala of then in circle come over, the vision is not good of dead stare at Leaf Day. Who let you drive Yi Feng out of country community? If Yi Tian didn't hear the threat of these guys, he continued calmly. You want to die. When the leader heard Yi Tian's words, his face became more and more bad. He raised his fist and smashed it hard at Yi Tian's head. Since I don't want to talk well, I have to reason with you. Yi Tian looks at the strong man with indifference. As soon as he raises his hand, he holds his arm and pulls it lightly. Bang! In an instant, the leading man, who is tall and big, is like a doll. He is pulled to the ground by Yi Tian, and even his front teeth are knocked off. Blood flows out of his mouth, and the ground is covered with blood. This guy, the other strong men of Anja Company, looking at Yi Tian in amazement, could hardly believe their eyes. Who can think, the boss is just a face-to-face, was put on the ground. Grass, let's go together and deal with this boy hard. But just a lang, those strong men then reaction come over, aggressive toward Yi Tian rushed over. Then I can only reason with you more. Yi Tian smiles indifferently, grabs his hand forward quickly, and then holds the arm of the nearest strong man. In a flash, a force that made the strong man feel completely irresistible suddenly swept his whole body. The next second, his body would fly upside down, and then fell on his companion. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, the three men were knocked to the ground. But Yi Tian's action is not over yet. He plunges forward as fast as a ghost and rushes into the crowd. His fists and feet just swing a few times. All the strong men who were originally fierce are put on the ground by him, holding their arms, thighs, and stomachs one by one. They are in agony on the ground. Dawn, immediately after that, Yi Tian fell on the chest of the leading man, like a majestic god of war. He looked at him coldly and said, I've already said the truth. Now can you answer my question well? The leading strong man looks at Yi Tian in horror and looks like a ghost in broad daylight. Even if he killed him, he really did not expect that he and his companions, so many people, could be put on the ground by Yi Tian in less than 2 minutes. You know, what they usually do is to collect debts and drive people away. It can't be said that those people who used to be scared by them to cry for their parents were all made of paper? Not yet? Yi Tian is a little impatient, and suddenly starts to work under his feet. Ah, it's killing me, big brother, raise your feet, I'll say it now. The leading strong man howled miserably and trembled in a hurry. If I had done this earlier, I wouldn't have to be reasonable. Who asked you to drive Yi Feng out of country village? Yi Tian Lite raised foot. Country house? Brother, do you mean there's a shrew at home? The leader was obviously impressed by Li Huizhi. Hearing the words, he was shocked. When he saw Yi Tian's face showing impatience, he said in a hurry, it was Chen Yu from Jinsha Company who gave us money to do this. We just collect money to drive people away. We really don't know why this is the case, and we don't know that they are the people you cover. If we knew this, we would have killed us. I dare not. Jinsha Company? When Yi Tian heard the leader's words, his brow became a knot in one's heart. For this name, he is no stranger, because Jinsha Company is the industry of Su family. Su Zhaoyun, president of Jinsha Company, is Su Qing's father. Is it hard to say that the strange death of his parents and the seizure of his property have something to do with the Su family? It seems that we have to go to the guy named Chen Yu to find out the truth. Yi Tian's eyes twinkled and his mind changed a little. Then he looked at the leader and said in a cold voice, "Do you know where Chen Yu lives?" Blue Sea County Community, 902, Unit 2, Building 3, where he gave me the money. At the moment, the leading man did not dare to fight even half a knock. In a hurry, he told Yi Tian all he knew. Good. You can tell him in advance that I'm going to find him. Yi Tian nodded, and then looked at the leader, pondering and laughing. Brother, don't tease me. Even if you lend me 10 courage, I dare not do it. The strong leader's head was shaking like a rattle, and everyone was about to cry. Informs Chen Yu that he intends to be killed alive by this terrible young man? Anyway, Chen Yu has already given him the hard work. As for how that guy is dealt with by this terrible young man, no matter what he does, if the Taoist friend is dead, as long as he doesn't die. You're a smart guy. Yi Tian looks at the leader, smiles coldly, kicks him aside, and then turns to walk towards the road. The strong men in Anjia Company, looking at Yi Tian's back in fear, cringe one by one. Even the boss does not dare to help. An hour later, Yi Tian came to Blue Sea County. After ringing the doorbell a few times, the door opened. A man in his 40s opened the door, looked at Yi Tian and frowned. Who are you? People who want to talk to you. Yi Tian's hand flicked, and then pushed Chen Yu aside. Then he walked into the room, stabbed to the sofa, grabbed an apple on the coffee table, and said with a smile, "Of course, if you don't want to have a good chat, I don't mind telling you something." Crack! When the words fall, Yi Tian's 5 fingers have a little magic power, and the apple in his palm turns into pulp crumbs, splashing all over the ground. Who are you? Chen Yu see this scene, eyebrows immediately twisted into a knot in one's heart, vigilant and afraid of looking at Yi Tian. Wei. Don't look at me with this kind of eyes. As long as you cooperate well, what I ask and what you say, I promise that your head won't end up like this apple. Yi Tian takes out a paper towel and wipes his hands casually. Leaning on the sofa, he looks very comfortable and says with a smile. However, in his words, Yi Tian's eyes seem to be inadvertently glancing at the group photo of Chen Yu's family on the wall. Seeing Yi Tian's sight, Chen Yu can't understand that Yi Tian is threatening his family. His face immediately changes. He closes the door with his backhand and tries to squeeze out a smile. Then he sits opposite Yi Tian and says, "I don't know what to call this, brother. What can I do for you?" That's right. Since all the brothers have called, it's time to save effort. Yi Tian nodded with a smile, then looked at Chen Yu and said, "Let me ask you something. Who let you drive the 3 members of Yi Feng's family out of Country Village?" As soon as Chen Yu's face changed, he suddenly understood. This guy, he's here for Yi Feng's sake. It's just, isn't this something the home company did? Why did the other party find him? Is it hard to find that the big men in the home company are all made of paper and mud, and they are so easily taken out of their mouths by the young people in front of them? Brother, I don't understand what you're talking about, Country Community and Yefeng. Chen Yueqiang squeezed out a smile and said. The truth of this matter involves a lot, and he really dares not say it. Oh. Yi Tian picks an eyebrow to smile, stretch out a hand to copy an apple. After weighing, the hand suddenly shakes. Bang! In an instant, the apple hit Chen Yu's chest heavily. Although it was just an apple, the powerful impact made Chen Yu feel as if he had been hit by a roaring shell. He flew backward and fell heavily to the ground. There was a sharp pain in his chest, as if his ribs were cracked. If you don't tell the truth like this, we brothers won't have to do it. Yi Tian looks at Chen Yu, who has fallen to the ground. He smiles lightly and says, "How can this guy be so terrible?" Chen Yu covered his chest and felt the pain was almost suffocating. He really didn't understand how an apple could have such terrible lethality. For the last time, who asked you to drive Yi Feng's family out of Country Community? Is it Su Zhaoyun? Yi Tian smiles indifferently, stares at Chen Yu's eyes, Light Wei. Hearing this, Chen Yu's eyes suddenly changed. It's really Jinsha Company. It's the Su family. It's Su Xiaoyun. Seeing the change of Chen Yu's expression, Yi Tian's eyes suddenly sank, and a strong sense of murder, which is almost the essence of the great friar of Yupu realm, suddenly burst out from him. The fierce killing even made Chen Yu feel that the temperature in the room seemed to have dropped a few degrees. But he really couldn't understand how such a young guy could have such a terrible murderer as walking out of a sea of corpses. Why does Su Xiaoyun want you to do this? After a long time, Yi Tian's eyes returned to calm, looking at Chen Yu word by word. I don't know. Chen Yu shook his head and said, I'm just following orders. Hearing this, Yi Tian immediately put his hand on the fruit basket and picked up an apple. Brother, I really don't know. When Chen Yu saw Yi Tian's action, he just felt as if he had seen a life-threatening sign. A chill came straight to the top door of his head along the sole of his foot. If he suddenly thought of something, he said in a hurry, why did Mr. Su ask me to drive Yifeng's family away? I really don't know, but before I got the order, I saw Mr. Su put it in the office safe. This matter may be related to those documents. The safe in Su Xiaoyun's office? Yi Tian's eyes slightly changed. He felt that Chen Yu should have finished what he knew. Well, you've managed to get yourself a chance to survive. Yi Tian chuckles, grabs the apple and takes a bite. Then he looks at the group photo on the wall with a smile and says, as for the next, whether you can keep this success depends on your own performance. Don't worry, brother. I won't say a word to anyone about this. Chen Yu shakes his head in panic and says, to deal with smart people is to save energy. Yi Tian smiles indifferently, taps the solid wood tea table gently, and then gets up and walks out of the house. In fact, Chen Yu did not know that Yi Tian's aim was to scare Chen Yu. Yi Tian still knows the simple truth that misfortune is less than that of his wife and children. However, his strength is not as strong as it used to be. He can only be cautious and prepared. Bang! When Chen Yu heard the sound of the door closing, he breathed a sigh of relief. He suddenly felt lucky for the rest of his life. Wow! But before he could catch his breath, he saw that the solid wood tea table burst open with the sound of closing the door. The wood blocks and the things placed on it splashed all over the floor. The pieces and tea flowed all over the living room. Hiss! Chen Yu looked at the ferocious broken lines of the wooden blocks and immediately took a breath of cold air. A layer of sweat about the size of soybeans came out of his forehead. In his mind, he could not help thinking about the picture of Yi Tian taking a tea table. He can't imagine what a terrible scene it would be if such a slap fell on himself or his family. I'm afraid the bones of his whole body would be as broken as a tea table. What would it be like to have a taste of broken bones? At this moment, a little bit of fluke in his heart suddenly disappeared. Su Xiaoyun's weight in his heart is indeed very heavy, but Su Xiaoyun is just his parents. The three members of his family are the real parents and relatives. Moreover, with Su Xiaoyun's character, even if he informs, he may not have any good fruit to eat. It's better to pretend to be deaf and dumb. At the same time, Yi Tian left the Blue Sea County community and looked up at the bright sun with gloomy eyes. He had thought about who would be the murderer of his parents countless times, but he never thought that this matter would be related to Su Xiaoyun. Su Xiaoyun and Yi Tian's father used to be both college students and good brothers. After graduation, Su Xiaoyun inherited the family property, while Yi Tian's father started a business from scratch and made a huge fortune. The relationship between the two did not change with their status. In business, they still helped each other. Otherwise, there would be no marriage agreement between Yi Tian and Su Qing. Yi Tian even remembers that he often went to the Su family with his parents, and Su Xiaoyun, who was called Uncle Su at that time, was still very enthusiastic about himself. During the spring festival, red envelope gifts are indispensable. Although his parents left and his property was empty, the Su family planned to repent, which made him disappointed with Su Xiaoyun. But he was disappointed, but he didn't hate it. After all, loving father and loving daughter, no one wants to marry his daughter to a poor boy. But now, Chen Yu's words make Yi Tian feel that the kind face of Uncle Su in his mind has become complicated. If he is really the murderer of his parents, are all the old friendships disguised? But if so, how terrible should such a person be? Su Xiaoyun, you'd better pray that this matter has nothing to do with you, otherwise. After a long time, Tian murmured and rushed to Jinsha building. He wants to open the safe in Su Zhaoyun's office and have a look. In it, there are some shady secrets, and whether those things are related to the truth of his parents' death. Su Zhaoyun is not the murderer. If he just takes advantage of the fire, then there is still room for everything to return to Huan. But if the culprit behind the scenes is really him, then one punch, kill it.